And let's make sure the sound gets turned up. I forgot that one whole meeting. Sound was up. Mimes. All right, great. All right, welcome to the Town of Litchfield Board of Selectmen meeting for August 11th, 2014. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I know I just yelled it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those on TV, I apologize for the loud vocals. That was throwing my voice, apparently. Anyway, the board just came out of a paperwork review session. First up on the agenda is review items of consent. In the consent folder tonight, we have the minutes from July 28th. The accounts payable manifest for $36,760.97. Payroll manifest for $40,303.42. A land use change tax warrant for map 18, lot 64-1. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve consent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0. All right. Request for other items for other business. Do we have anything else for other business?
I'd like to ask if we could take a moment and talk about the town website.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else? As we get two items, probably want to talk about, there's a status of car 5 we need to discuss, and I don't see that on there, Jason, right?
No, that
It's late
developed
breaking.
after I finished the agenda.
Okay. And then also, we also have an RSA 91A request I just want to make the board aware of. So those two.
I'll weave those into my report.
Okay. All right, next up is Conservation Commission, presentation around land purchase.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for your time tonight. I'm Tom Levesque, Chairman. With me tonight I have Michael Proto, alternate, and Marion Kozek is a regular member. And we're here to present the request to purchase the land on Route 3A, which I believe you have the plans in front of you somewhere. Jason advises me.
Yep, it's on the portal.
Oh, it's okay. See, I'm used to paper. I'm a paper. So, is there any questions on the, other than what you're seeing in front of you now at this time?
There were a couple questions I had, Chairman Levesque, and that is, one, do we have an evaluation of the property by a registered assessor?
No, we don't, sir.
How come?
We felt that the value spoke to itself. It's 1,500 feet of frontage on the road. Frontage required in the town to build a house is 150 feet. So we see the potential for someone to build somewhere between 8 to 10 houses at the average price of a lot right now at about 127 to 130 for a lot. So we saw a potential cost to it, potential buy from a developer at somewhere in the vicinity of $700,000 to $800,000. So we thought the purchase price that we come up with was a fair and equitable number.
But we haven't had a professional
We have not
evaluate
had a
that.
professional, no, sir.
Okay, last meeting I brought this up, so it's to those members of the board who were here last time, and I, in fact, told you about that before the
Yes,
meeting.
you did, thank you.
That my concern is that we don't have an evaluation by an assessor. Last meeting, Mr. Hoke explained that we didn't have any sales of property of equivalents, I'll call it equivalent sales in Litchfield, and then used some type of analysis to put together what he estimated was an approximate price of the property. My feeling is that by having an assessor do a determination of what the property's worth, we can actually go outside of the town and find equivalent parcels that may be out there as well that have sold, so that we can understand what happened. We can use the state's data to make that equivalent to Litchfield, which is published for the whole state, and be able to rest assured that what we're doing, and the purchase price of this is $610,000,
Correct, sir.
Or 620?
610.
Okay. That the money that we're spending of the citizens, $610,000, is being spent appropriately. And I have full support for the Conservation Commission doing this. I want to be clear on that. I find it very great news that the Conservation Commission is purchasing farmland, because I think, as I've said before, this is a time bomb that the town is sitting on. But I just want to make sure that we do our due diligence. And as selectmen, I felt that a valuation by an assessor would make the most sense.
No, Mr. Byron, I think you made a motion and it failed for lack of a second, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
You made a motion in the last meeting?
In the last meeting,
The last meeting, that is correct.
I believe, well, that, the board, I know, listening to the commission and what their value and some of the estimates that were made, the price we're paying is under that estimate of fair market.
My other point is that the board is never, this board,
Mhm.
and I'm sure the Conservation Commission has reviewed that, but this board has not been presented with any of that data. So we have no idea how that number was derived.
I think I gave you a thumb sketch of it one second
that-
ago.
yeah,
And
you
that's
did.
pretty much what the thumb sketch was, is
Right.
how it was derived. I mean, I got scratch pieces here that, I can show you where the scratches were, and that's how it was derived. We took the frontage, the size of, the amount of acreage involved, and the potential development, and there was a lot on 3/8, it was just sold, last week, a week before, it was in the paper, I think that sold for about 130. So if you, it was a 1 acre lot, so if you take,
The 130 times 7 or 8 acres, the price is well in range.
we figured conservatively, they could have got 7 lots out of it, conservatively. But stretching it and knowing how developers stretch everything in this world, they would have got 10. 10 at 120, but at 1.2.
The other question I wanted to ask is on the purchase and sales agreement that was presented to the board. There was a question on examination of title. Who's going to examine the title?
That was examined by town council, I believe.
That would, yeah, that has already been done
No one took care of that yet.
through town council.
Title search was done.
A title search was done. In fact, title search was done because it came up with a straggler about there was some lien that had to be released that was taken care of last week.
That was handed to us at our meeting last week, right?
Right.
So we have, are we getting title insurance on this or anything?
Not to my knowledge, Jason.
As far as I know, no, because the title work was done prior to the purchase and sale.
Have we ever gotten title search on purchases before?
Title insurance.
Title insurance on purchases in the past? I don't recall the last time we bought one, we've never done.
think so.
None of the processes we've ever bought, that's never been done. I admit this is our largest
Right.
parcel of property. It's probably just about a prime parcel because of the fact that the farmland aspect of it, the fact there's 1,500 feet of frontage, the fact there's access to the river, it puts it in a special category.
No, and I fully agree with that and fully support that. I guess my point was that by getting title insurance, then we protect ourselves as a municipality. Title insurance is relatively cheap. There's not a lot of costs, and our resident legal guru can probably tell us what title insurance would cost, but I'm guessing it's, what, a couple $100 at most?
I brought my attorney with me.
Do we cheat them? Do we cheat them and how?
One of them,
So we could still approve it and just with the stipulation that title insurance is purchased before we execute the final PNS, right?
I would say that instead of presupposing that title insurance is necessary, that if you approve it, you could request that we discuss with council whether title insurance is necessary. And if so, do so based on, because I haven't been part of the discussions.
Title insurance, just, it's an insurance policy.
It's never necessary.
Right.
I mean, you can purchase a home without title insurance, you can purchase property without title insurance. Title insurance is a belt and suspenders means, it's relatively cheap to assuring that if something comes up in a title, and I'm sure council did the whatever, but if you get the Abenaki Indians who all of a sudden claim that this was their ancestral campground and that they, whatever,
You covered.
then you have the insurance which will also protect you against that claim and be able to defend you in court and everything else.
Would the title insurance be something that would have to be purchased every year, or just one time?
It's
One time. It's a one-time purchase, and I seriously don't know what it costs currently. I think it's less than $300-400. It's relatively cheap. That's,
I don't see any reason why I just don't buy it, just if it helps
If that,
negate any concerns around title.
I agree.
none of us on, over here have any objection. I mean, if you would,
Yeah.
if we would make everybody feel better, I mean, for that negligible type of dollars versus what we're paying,
Sure.
$300 or $400 is not gonna break the bank either way.
Right.
Any other questions?
I think you might find title insurance be over $1,000.
I don't know. I seriously don't know. When I purchased it for my home, it wasn't that expensive.
I was gonna say, even at $1,000 is still in
My guess
comparison
was
to the
gonna be
expense.
1,000 to 1,500. That's my guess.
Yeah, how many years ago did you buy your house, Frank?
27? But I inflated the number.
Couldn't pass that up, I'm sorry. You're getting old too.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion? I'll make the motion. I make the motion that we approve the purchase and sales agreement as presented for the purchase price of $610,000, and that also title insurance be purchased for the purchased for said agreement prior to final signature.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion?
Yeah, as I said earlier, a couple moments ago, I do agree and wholeheartedly support the Conservation Commission purchasing this property, but feel that, pretty strongly about the fact that we don't have an assessor, a property assessor, appraiser, I should say, is the correct term, who's come up with the numbers to make sure that we're in the right ballpark. So I will be voting against this, but I do support your purchase of this.
Well, then I'd ask the question of, instead of voting against it, why wouldn't we just ask them to get the property assessed?
I made a motion, Selectman Perry, at the last meeting. The motion was defeated, and I don't see that that would have a chance of being changed this evening, even if you were to vote in favor of it.
If we were to go get an assessment, and it's an exercise, what would it take, how long would it take to turn that around?
I bet you less than a week.
The other problem, well, not problem, but the other issue we had come up with was, would it be something that we would pay for or the seller would pay for?
In this case, it'd be the
Their idea was the least amount of legal issues with the selling of this property was the better they liked it. And Joan had gotten some information from somewhere
Yeah, Jason, I
about,
think, and some other stuff, yeah. He furnished, I think.
Yeah, well, because what we started with was looking at, okay, we're gonna pay a couple $1,000s to have somebody come in and appraise this.
Yeah, and you said, I think, 5,000.
Yeah, I mean, that was our best guess, just sort of, as a quick number. And then we looked and said, well, what data did they have to work with? And we realized that we had no sales data locally to work with, other than the kinds of things that Chairman Levesque already brought up, and said, well, we could pay somebody thousands of dollars to do this analysis. Unlike when you do a single-family house, you have lots of comps, it's pretty quick, you turn them around and they're spin and burn. Open land is a little tougher to do because there aren't a lot of comps. And when the quick numbers were done, and I think as you outlined with that scenario, the numbers that were implied by how we have other properties assessed already came out a lot higher than this number would be. And that was a point we said, well, maybe that's a couple thousand, or we don't need to spend, maybe that's additional time we don't need to devote here.
I have another question on that. Would the property that we would have to compare it to, per acreage, frontage, whatever, have to be in this locality? Could it be otherwheres, other places within the state? I know we have a second home, but it's way up north, and there's tons of open space up there that's for sale.
And it's cheap.
It's
Right,
cheap, yeah.
and it's pretty easy to pull numbers for that,
Yeah.
depending where it's located and what town it's located in.
It would have to be comparable property.
They have to be comparable.
It'd
Current
have to
region-
be comparable
region.
property, I would think, but I would assume that a well-read or well-traveled, if you want to call it that, property appraiser somewhere in the southern part of the state, and I'm thinking the greater Nashua area, could probably find equivalent parcels to this one that could be used for comparison, and then the number adjusted by, the state each year creates a database that says, okay, Litchfield assesses high, Hudson assesses low, and then they normalize it, okay? And the normalization could be done, I'm guessing. I'm not an appraiser, I don't know, I just act like one on television.
See, I think, having been looking for land in this area, the back of the napkin calculation that we use, the 130, is low in some respects. And assuming you can get 7 to 9 lots out of it, again, the price for the land and for its current use makes a lot of sense. That's hence the reason why I'm not in disagreement with it.
The big thing I see about this is the fact that the road frontage is there. If this was raw land, and this piece of land went 150-foot frontage and went back.
And it was landlocked too, something like that, it would be a whole different
I think we'd be
scenario.
here- If we would be here, it would be for a much different number, or we wouldn't be here at all.
Right,
We are looking at another piece of property in town, which is, pretty much, which I just described a minute ago, but it's a totally different ballpark. It abuts other property that the town owns, so we are interested, but that would be a totally different price structure. This has the road frontage there, the infrastructure's there. I mean, it's a simple case of the surveyor doing 150 feet, 150 feet, 150 feet. I could see a guy surveying that thing out and putting 150-foot lots in there, and before the week was over, starting tonight.
Yeah.
And 10 lots later.
And that's been the concern of the Conservation Commission too, that there's a developer in town that would have bought that up in a second. Just with the gamble that he can get 7 lots out of it.
I don't have any doubt about that. By looking at the property, I'm sure that, in fact, I think there's a house right next to it that's down on the river, which I'm sure has features that people would find desirable and everything else. I do have one other question I just
Sure.
thought of. When this goes to deed, is it your intention to write conservation covenants into the deed?
Yes.
Okay.
To a certain degree, we'll be working that over, yes. But it will be specifically for agricultural or open space in perpetuity and so on, and that's the objective. Going back to my dear friend Pat's days of the Farmland Preservation Committee, which was he's back when Frank was in Chalk Band, so he still is.
I still am.
But she's been pushing that for years, and this would actually be like for her like a dream to actually come through, that we're actually buying some farmland.
Mhm.
She actually gave me her books on that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Abstain? Motion carries 3-1-0.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So the only thing you gotta do is get title insurance and we're good.
You'll take care of that.
Yeah, we'll take care of that and the deed and the checks and.
Joan talked to the
Yeah,
website.
Joan gave me some direction, so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your
Thanks.
assistance. Yeah, she got it.
Have a good night. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks a lot.
On the other side.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for coming in.
Good night.
I said on the other side for years, I said automatic.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Before we go on to the next thing, can I take 1 second to clarify for those who may be watching because we didn't sort of set the table on this in one way, that the funds for this come from the conservation land fund.
We just spent the money.
The funds for this are the funds that have grown over time from both town meeting deposits as well, and mainly from the land use change tax funds. The change this year at town meeting to that fund that gave it a few more purposes. This is where that money's coming from. This is not general fund money. This is not property tax, current year property tax money. This is the conservation fund money that's buying the land. They have the authority to buy, subject to the approval of the selectmen. They held a hearing last week to authorize the use of the fund, which is under their jurisdiction for this purpose. So just a little bit of context of where this all comes from. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you again. All right, next up is a citizen noise ordinance request. So the board is aware, we received two correspondence, one after our July 28th meeting, and then the other following up on August 1st. Do we have this we can print this up for the minutes to get
Sure.
posted in, right?
Yep.
So, Chris Pascucci sent an email addressing to all the board members. He said, "Good evening. To follow up on the point I made at tonight's meeting, my skin crawls when I hear politicians talk about banning anything. Fireworks is legal in the state of New Hampshire. It is also a tradition. Maybe a slight inconvenience for a couple of nights in July, but again, it's legal. I believe it is an overreaching by you 5 selectmen to even think about banning them. Anyway, apparently it takes only one person to email you to get the banning ball rolling. I understand that you have scheduled a town forum sometime in August, just so we are all clear on how these types of events go. The only people motivated or even know about the potential ban is the one person that complained, and the selectmen would seem to also agree with the ban. Of course, these same people will let their like-minded friends know of this forum, which will give a mainly one-sided view leaning towards a ban. The average law-abiding Litchfield resident is going about their business, not even in their wildest dreams thinking they have to worry about their 5-member BOS banning something they enjoy doing legally a couple of nights every summer. Mr. Brunel, you said you would consider banning fireworks a BOS warrant. I don't even think that should be done by you. If this one citizen is so intent and so passionate about banning these otherwise legal practice, then you should advise her to petition a warrant. If there is a huge outcry for this ban, then she should have no problem gathering 25 signatures. To be perfectly clear, I do not like fireworks. I do not light them. I don't even like to watch them. The noise is annoying, and every July 5th, I have to go around my property picking up pieces of cardboard and chalky pieces of something that dropped from the sky from the neighborhood fireworks. As much of an annoyance that is for me, I believe in the freedom, liberty, and limited government. I do not believe in the idea that you 5 are smarter than everyone else in the community, or that your job is to protect us from every little nuisance and inconvenience. These kinds of government overreaching scares me. Having said all that, consider this a formal request to add a few topics to your town forum in August. I'm confident that my requests are at least equal of a concern compared to the firework discussion, if not even more importantly, or more important. Remember, the reason given by the committee member for a fireworks ban included noise, which prevented sleep, loud sounds which scared pets, and the same loud sounds which stressed the wildlife. My request includes the following. Ban outdoor parties, including excessive noise, after 9 p.m. during the spring, summer, and autumn seasons, the times of year when the windows are wide open. Ban the use of power tools, including lawnmowers, tractors, and weed whackers, before 9 a.m. during the week, and before 11 a.m. on weekends when people are sleeping later. Ban loud motorcycle exhaust. Make that one a permanent ban, as it's ear-piercing. Ban dogs that bark for more than 15 consecutive minutes. Ban loud gunfire, especially the machine gun shots from the gun range, and ban outdoor shooting during hunting season. It's extremely loud. Hunting takes place very early in the morning and affects people, pets, and especially the wildlife. If any of you think my requests seem silly, I agree with you. In my opinion, and in the opinion of every freedom and liberty-loving conservative believer in the Constitution agrees. My requests are as silly as your desire to even think about banning fireworks is. But if that's the direction you are willing to head towards, then my request deserves equal time, equal discussion from concerned members of this community. Please get these items on the agenda for the forum, and if you could be so kind, email the time and day, et cetera, Chris Pascucci. Now, after I think we responded back to Chris, and I indicated that we would take up the 5 items he listed at a future meeting, and that I did not want to mix the firework forum, the firework public hearing, which is an ordinance we'll talk about tonight, with these 5, because these 5 were actually covered by an ordinance that we talked about last year, which we took no action on. And quite frankly, it's just about being a good neighbor, you know, and people have the good decency to be quiet when they need to be quiet. Anyway, on August 1st, Chris then wrote again to the board, addressing to me, Mr. Brunel, I just had a chance to read the minutes from the 7/14 BOS meeting, and I realized the person that wrote that fireworks letter is different from the person that spoke to it. To be perfectly clear, I agree with the complaint and sympathize with both of those ladies. The sound of those constant fireworks on July 4th is enough to annoy the heck out of anyone. For me, the loud noises from parties on my block on the evening of July 4th went much further into the evening than the last boom of any fireworks. The complaints are real. It's just your remedy where I have a problem. Our liberty and freedoms are slowly being taken away from us by politicians at all levels of government. The further away from local, the harder it is for the average citizen to regain control of our liberties. However, locally, it is somewhat harder, somewhat easier, and this issue, in my opinion, is something the Litchfield Board of Selectmen should either stay away from or should go all the way and ban everything that is inconvenient or inconvenience. The person that wrote to you was very clear, not only about the sounds of fireworks on the 2 nights per year, she's also complaining about loud barking dogs at early hours, waking us up from our sound sleep, loud cars, trucks, and motorcycles driving by at all hours of the night, also waking us at those times. Parties with loud music for hours. Yet the 5 of you chose to focus solely on fireworks. What is that? Why is that? Is it some personal bias you are trying to govern? Is there some personal agenda you're trying to achieve? My last letter, I had requested that you consider the exact same other noise issues written in the ban fireworks letter, yet Mr. Brunel, you declined my request. Can you please give me a logical reason as to why these other noises generating issues that go on throughout the entire year rather than only 2 nights per year, cannot be discussed at the same public forum? Gentlemen, unfortunately for us, unfortunately for the sake of freedom and liberty, local boards of the Selectmen have great power and legally can do so many things. Please stop doing things. Please find some reasonable boundaries for stuff you want to do, stuff you want to ban, and stuff you want to take away from us, stuff you want to protect from us. This is how this issue should be handled. When the letter made it to your office, the following statement: the use of fireworks is indeed legal in the state of New Hampshire. If a Litchfield resident is being careless, reckless, or otherwise exceeding or breaking current state or local law, our police force will investigate and take care of the issues as the current law allows. If this is not satisfactory for you, you have the following options: petition your state legislator to begin the process to make the purchase and use of fireworks illegal in the state of New Hampshire. And of course, as a citizen of Litchfield, under the current law, you have the right to petition a warrant to get this ban on a ballot. All it takes is 25 Litchfield signatures. Sign such a petition. Then, you can speak to your issues at deliberative, as well as campaign throughout the community to convince others to vote for your issue. As selectmen, although, we have the legal right to ban fireworks and even create our own warrant. We feel this we feel this is outside the boundaries of what we should be doing. Gentlemen, referring your 5-0 vote, clearly you believe you are here to protect us from every little disturbance. Following that logic, then please protect us from all the issues expressed in that letter you read on 7/14 as well as the same concerns I expressed to you via email last week. Or, please rethink where your boundaries lie and dismiss the issue. After all, it's August 1st, and we will not have this firework issue rise again for another 11 months. But we will continue to suffer through all the other noises and inconveniences each and every day of the year. What is the real goal? Sincerely, Chris Pascucci. So, what this seemed to go back to goes back to the noise ordinance that we discussed last July, where we went through a lot of the same criteria that was discussed here. And I actually forget, I mean, it died on the vine, because we couldn't come, we thought the existing laws in place, I believe, were adequate enough and that we didn't have a significant issue. As I told Mr. Pascucci, to me, these are two separate issues. The fireworks is one scenario, and the listing of what is already covered by disturbance laws and different things were already addressed. And I didn't want to mix the two issues, so I did ask Chris to be here tonight if there's any questions regarding his request. Didn't know if the board wanted to bring up the noise ordinance again and discuss that, and see if we can come up with an ordinance that would address his concerns. And then that would actually go through the same process. We would review the ordinance, it would go to public forum or public hearing, and then we would decide what we do from there forth. And I know when the firework thing came up, we all agreed that if it made sense, we'd let it go to the voters and vote on a complete ban. That's what the vote was about. The vote was to say, let's look into the issue and see what the next steps were. There was discussion at the time about potentially maybe a partial ban done by the board, and then go to the voters for a final decision. I think the only thing that vote said was, we agree, let's go look at it, let's talk about it. It wasn't, we're gonna do one thing versus the other. So I guess I'm asking the board, how would you like to address Chris Pascucci's request to address those 5 issues?
I would say, I sort of agree with what he's saying. I think it definitely falls under the ordinance as far as noise. I don't think it should be dealt separately. I think if we're going to deal with it, let's deal with the whole thing at once. And then maybe we can revisit what we visited last year.
Yep. So fireworks aren't necessarily captured in the noise ordinance, it's loud noises in general.
Yeah, I think they were called out as amongst the things that were considered a violation was the way where we last left this draft was fireworks, the display of permissible fireworks in accordance with
RSA 160.
RSA 160.
Okay, so it's
still
draft,
allowed.
we don't have a noise
No,
ordinance.
no,
So
no,
we
no.
don't have one. All we had said was, we
No.
have a, whatever the state statute is, right? I think it's pretty sure. Right.
Can I actually ask the chief a question?
Yes.
If you got a phone call at 11 o'clock at night stating that there was a residence that was making too much noise, what do you do when you go? Tell them to quiet down?
Yes.
What do you have as a form of recourse to prevent them from continuing on?
Arrest.
Okay. Even though we don't have a noise ordinance, you can still enforce it under,
Breach of peace, disorderly conduct.
And that's what we got stuck with last year. We at that point, we said we had it covered. Anything else above that would require us to do other things like get noise sound, hear, sensors, whatever you call it, to be able to hear what was going on and be able to.
ask the state how that's working on motorcycles.
Yeah, I know.
So chief,
It's not.
at 9 o'clock at night, if you got that complaint, what would be the outcome then?
If it's unreasonable,
If it was somebody lighting fireworks on May 1st,
if it's unreasonable and it's, disturbing the peace, we would, the same thing.
So I guess my question to you, just touch base on that, would it be the homeowner or any individuals?
We generally, if we see an individual doing it, we'd talk to that person, otherwise it'd be the homeowners responsible.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I think that's where we were last time. We felt that the state statute was enough. I think we actually asked the chief that we had any issues, and we know what time of years we do have a peak of those issues. For the most part, neighbors are being good neighbors, and when they're not, we help that.
And if I recall last year when we spoke about this, you don't get a lot of complaints to the police department, do you?
Not a large amount. I mean, we do have some fireworks complaints, the officers get there. The ones that I've seen is generally the people are gone on arrival.
Mhm.
There's nobody continuing. The officers will stay in the neighborhood, just to see if there is a problem.
Mhm.
And then move on.
I mean, most of the time, by the time a call comes in and somebody's lighting fireworks, I mean, you can rip through a few $100 in fireworks in 10 minutes. So it doesn't typically last too long, right?
Right. And it's not a top priority call. So if there's something else, if we have an officer with a DWI, it could take us 3 hours to get to that call.
Right. And I think last year when we talked about it, the reason why we didn't act upon anything was for the simple reason we didn't have a large volume of complaints or calls that we responded to. So. But again, I think if we're going to address it, I think just addressing the fireworks under the ordinance would be the best way to approach it. But
Well, I was gonna say, we should need to look at if the noise ordinance was the one issue, the firework is still another topic, because there's two separate directions to take. One is really a noise ordinance, and the other one is, a permitting style or whatever. We need to figure that out. Or we don't do anything, we fall back into this all makes sense. This is where we were last year, fireworks was part of the reason we brought it up. Loud parties, it was all around, this came up because of fireworks originally too.
I think the key just
I would actually like him to come up
absolutely.
and say his piece on part of this discussion, because otherwise we're going around in circles, and then he's gonna come up and talk about it anyway.
We are going around in circles, but in a lot of ways, what Chris is doing is raising the silly to get us to rethink the firework.
Well-
And I just don't wanna, I don't wanna mix the two things up. And the thing is that I agree, it's all noise. But to go off and try to ban a neighborhood can't mow your lawn until 11 o'clock on Saturday is just ridiculous. I'm a working person, I do cut my lawns from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If my neighbor has a problem with it, as a neighbor, I'll deal with it. They'll come up and tell me, and I'll quiet down. I'm sure that's what you do too in your neighborhood. We're all good neighbors, so we all adjust as we need to in our neighborhoods.
Just let me know if I'm allowed to speak. If not, I'll wait till community input.
You're gonna be able to address, I'm just saying that, to be honest, Chris, this is your tick at us to take an action, and you're giving us 5 ridiculous things to talk about.
Okay, then let me respond to it. First of all, this is the discussion that we should have been having at first, so thank you, gentlemen. If it was my letters that got it to this point.
Let me stop you there. The discussion around this will happen during the public forum. If we were to carry that ordinance forward, that's when that would occur.
And
It's
if
not
it's
because
still-
not because of your letter, I'm addressing your 5 things.
And if it still goes, then I'll discuss it at the forum also. And please, Mr. Brunel, my silly, I mean, that,
It's your quote.
I know I said some people might think it's silly, and clearly you do. I was being a little sarcastic because I thought logical people should not think it's silly, because this is serious. We could disagree on raising a tax or a couple extra bucks spent somewhere, but this is, in my opinion, you guys overstepping your bounds. You see, and I made it clear in the letter when I spoke here. If you guys don't like fireworks, Mr. Lemire immediately said, I think fireworks should be banned. You petition our state guys, bring it up at the State House. I'll go up to the state and talk to them, let it be a state discussion. Let them ban the sale and use of fireworks, close every fireworks store in the state. That's the way it should be done. Now, if this is a legitimate noise issue, which that's what it was, waking up at night, I can't sleep, scares the pets. There's a lot of things in town that scares pets. So when I'm saying you think my 5 things are silly compared to fireworks, I think the discussion about fireworks is silly, but if you're treating that serious, then I'm bringing up equal things. Even the petitioner, the writer of that letter, mentioned all of these other things. It wasn't me that brought it up. It was loud motorcycles, it was cars, it was loud noises, and the point was at all hours of the night. Now, when I said that on my block, fireworks ended, and when I went to bed, there was screaming, singing, yelling till 2 or 3 in the morning, 4 hours after fireworks ended. That was more of an annoyance to me, but I'm fine with it because to me that's America. That's the 4th of July, that's liberty, that's freedom, that's what we're all about. If I don't like it, I could shut my windows, I could turn the air conditioner on, I can go get a hotel for the night. That's what personal freedoms are about. And banning things like this is just putting an undue burden on our police force because Chief O'Brien just said it now. If somebody's being unruly with fireworks or noises or lawnmowers, unreasonably, he could act. So that alone we don't need a ban. So if it truly is a noise issue that you're after, and by the way, fireworks maybe 2 nights a year, 3, 4 at max. Lawnmowers, 6 months. Parties, 9 months. So if this is truly a noise issue, then treat it, like Mr. Bork just agreed, as a noise issue. And it should not be separate. The only reason why fireworks should be separate is if you guys do have a personal bias or agenda against fireworks. That is the only reason why you would separate it. So I'm asking for consistency here. And if it's a noise issue, treat it as a noise issue. Because there are noise issues that go on a Sunday morning when the lawnmowers go up at 7:30 in the morning when some people sleep till 10 or 11. That is more of an annoyance every Sunday than it is on July 4th, one time. So please, please don't insult me and the people that, even the person that wrote this letter that has the other issues that I just reiterated and repeated. So, yes, in a way, I'm trying to make a point, but it's philosophical. My point is stop banning stuff. Don't even attempt to ban it. Don't even bring it up. But if you're going to, then be consistent, be serious, and treat them all equally, because there's a lot of other bigger issues. My point is don't ban it. Now, one last point is you guys said, well, we're only going to talk about it, we're going to bring it up. Look, the average person sitting at home is not thinking that you guys are going to ban something they enjoy. So then, what, are you going to put a little ad in the paper and you're going to word it as something like, come to a public forum to talk about a noise ordinance? What you should do is post it all over town, say, we're going to ban your fireworks unless you show up here. Then the people will show up. The only people that are going to show up are the few that you email or the few that complained, and they're going to all scream, we don't like fireworks. So then what are you going to get out of that meeting? You're going to say, you see that? The citizens of this town don't like fireworks, let's put it on a warrant.
Chris, and that's the point, is it would have went on warrant.
Right.
Right.
So it would have been up to the voter at that point, even if they didn't know it was gonna happen.
Okay,
If, you weren't here the meeting that we talked about that.
I watched it on TV.
Okay, because I was of the opinion that our license plate says it all, live free or die.
That's the way it
okay?
should be.
I enjoy fireworks, my kids enjoy them, I buy them, I light them off. I live in a wonderful neighborhood, because I live in a neighborhood where I can be as loud as I want, 2 or 3 times a year, and everybody says, sounds like you had a great time
Well,
last
being a
night."
good neighbor, which we
That's
all
right.
are here in Litchfield.
Because we all do that.
Right.
And that's one of the agreements we have. That was my whole intent on this firework thing, and to bring it on to a further discussion. My question about actually going to this meeting and trying to get some of the public to come in is if we had 10 people, if we had 5 people, if we could fill the room. Because if you can fill the room, then there's a seriousness as to how I need to rethink it. That's the way I took that, okay?
Okay.
Because my point of the matter was, I don't really care if we say you can't light fireworks after 11 o'clock at night, because you shouldn't be anyway. You know what I mean? They should be done pretty much as soon as it gets dark,
Right.
until
They
9,
pretty much are.
even 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? That was where I planned on going with it. So,
And that's where it was going. I think the problem is that we started talking about specifically around about fireworks, but as you walk through this, the due diligence we've been doing, it's coming back to a noise ordinance. something that we would do and would cover that if it was a case. And just to clarify something too, because you've accused me of being in favor of it, let me just be clear. I'm not in favor of any ban on fireworks or even a noise ordinance for the town. I think that what's in state statute is perfectly fine. And I believe in neighbors should be good neighbors, period.
Okay.
So,
That was the second part of my, and you read it, and I would have been more than happy to come up here and read my letters. I know I don't write very smoothly, so, it's, you guys bringing it to warrant. You see, look, people trust you guys, right? Hey, the Board of Selectmen put this on a warrant. Now, look, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to fail if you bring it to a warrant. There's no way it's going to pass. I'm confident of that. And for me, it'll just allow a deliberative and a discussion, and we could bring it and letters to the editor, and we could talk about the whole process of banning and overreach. And I mean, I would look forward to that discussion. But I have to tell you the way I think the right way to do it is. If you guys were going to bring it up, you would have to, it's a noise ordinance, so you can't just separate and put fireworks on the ballot. You just can't do that, because if it's noise, you got to talk about noise, so it all has to be on there. But also, this goes back to consistency. Now, I'm not getting off a track here, but you guys only tend to agree to put something on warrant that you overwhelmingly agree with, because you can go back to last year. There was 2 warrants sitting right in front of you. One was to talk about a tax cap, and boom, it was killed right here. Why didn't you bring that to the voters and ask their opinion? I mean, that's the same thing, right? Have a forum, ask them if tax cap, put it on a warrant, sell it like you would this, give them their opinion. But no, you killed it right here, because there's no way you want a tax cap. And at that same meeting, you killed just a warrant to even talk about, possibly, maybe talking about reducing a little bit level of services in town. And you kill that right here too. So where's the consistency? If you're really for bringing stuff to the people, talking about it in a public forum, bringing it to them and letting them vote it on ballot day, then bring some of those other initiatives up. Have those forums also. So I'm asking for consistency. Consistency with your own definition of a noise ordinance, and don't separate it out. Throw it all at the voter. Or if that's your new policy where you just want to have forums, which I agree with, the more education, information, the better. Then have a forum about a tax cap, see what the people think. Have a forum about the level of services in town. And let's have all of those forums, schedule them right after each other, and then start creating warrants off of that. That is all I am asking for, gentlemen, consistency. Now, if there's any other questions, it's my suggestions are not silly. I think the entire thing is silly. But my suggestions are as serious as a heart attack, that these need to be included if you're going to have that fireworks discussion. And then, of course,
as I said,
it's got to be a monetary one also, because we have to now buy decibel meters to equip our police officers, because in order to inform it, you need to measure it.
Enough. As I said, Chris, as we're going through the due diligence, trying to figure out what the right thing to do, whether it's a firework ban or a noise ordinance, we're coming to the conclusion that it has to be an all-encompassing noise ordinance. We are going to discuss 2 firework-specific bans, but we'll see where that goes.
Because you told me in the email, you said you're going to separate them, there's not going
I
to be
wanted to
part of it.
separate the forum, the public input part of it, because I wanted to look at, if this board decides to go forward with one of the other options, that's going to go to a public hearing for feedback before we make any final decisions. If that's what we decide, if we decide tonight we're not going to go forward with a firework ban, and we're going to now work on a noise ordinance that's going to encompass everything, that's what will get presented as a forum. But right now, it was, at that last 2 meetings, it was talking about fireworks.
So just so I'm clear, if you do have a fireworks a forum, and if a member of the public, any member, just wants to bring up any noise, you're going to disallow it and stop the conversation?
We're going to try to make sure the conversation is on topic, but I'm sure it'll come out.
Okay, yeah, because because you're going to say, why you want to ban fireworks? Well, because it's noisy.
Correct.
Well, this is noisy too. Well, don't talk about that
Again,
noise.
your elected officials are coming to the same conclusion you're already come to, apparently. So we'll get there.
Gotcha.
Let us walk the process.
Okay, so we good, gentlemen?
We are. I'm hoping you're going to hang out.
I'll hang out. Yeah,
There's some more fun for you.
I'll sit back there.
All right, so with regards to Mr. Pascucci's request of the board, what does the board want to do? Do you want to hold back, talk about the fireworks stuff, see where that goes, maybe roll in his requirements? Like I said, the work that we're doing, it sounds like, it feels like it's going back to a noise ordinance that's going to be including. or nothing.
I got my answer from the chief when I asked him how he would address any of these issues. He doesn't seem to need a noise ordinance
I'm with you.
I agree with it.
in order to do that. I don't know that we've had major issues to this point. We did have the complaint about the fireworks.
And every year we get some level of complaints that come across,
Yeah.
so.
I think that's why we brought it up last year, right? As
I
well.
would like to be able to ask the chief a couple questions if possible.
Sure, Chief, wants to come up? Sure. I did ask the chief here for one other, but I also knew this topic was on, so I asked him to come a little early.
Evening.
He doesn't like going home at night anyway.
No,
Home's overrated, right?
no. Frank, you can ask your questions.
Chief, you had said that, basically, I think you can take action using a, disturbing the peace, and then there was another one, I forget.
Yeah, breach of peace or
Breach of
disorderly
peace.
conduct.
What is the penalty for that?
It's a Class B misdemeanor, so it would be a fine, up to $2,000.
Okay. Is there a certain level of, I don't know what you want to call it, where that trip, where it rises to that? Is there a certain amount that,
It would be,
you couldn't walk in there and if I'm humming to myself and say you're
I
disturbing
cannot-
public peace.
a police officer cannot be offended with the disorderly conduct. It has to be a separate citizen that complains about it.
Then you would only,
Get to witness it after that, right?
you would only put the, charge against the individual if a citizen made the complaint.
Right. It would be a breach of peace against.
Now, what happens if if you as an officer don't witness that?
Then it would have to be done through a warrant.
See, what I'm trying to understand is, while some thought was that maybe we don't need an ordinance, so I'm trying to understand whether an ordinance gives you larger discretion or creates a situation where a misdemeanor is a pretty serious charge. Where a violation of an ordinance gives you better discretion and can be used as more of a means to correct the problem without going to the misdemeanor route, if you understand what I'm saying.
It would be more or less a hand summons to appear in court in violation of that ordinance.
And generally speaking, what would that penalty be if found guilty?
That's going to be up to the Board of Selectmen. They would determine the fine amount. Just like the parking violations, some of them you have at, there's some that are $20, there's some that are $100. It's generally the Board of Selectmen that set the amount of the ordinance violation. You guys have done first offense, second offense, third offense, a step grade higher. For a first offense would be $100, second offense $250.
Is that a situation where somebody could say, I'm going to plead guilty to it and just come in and pay the fine?
Yes.
So in the case of a misdemeanor, though, they would have to appear in court. There is
Yes.
no ifs, ands, or buts about that,
Correct.
right? So based upon that, while I understand you may be against the idea of an ordinance, my feeling would be that an ordinance would be the best means to effect an end without putting a citizen into a situation where you automatically charge. Now, I know you have some discretion. Obviously, you're going to go in there and you're going to warn somebody.
The same questions we asked last year, and I think if you look at all the commentary from around, it's all there, and we struggled with the same discussion last year. I mean, if you want to make a motion to go forward with a noise ordinance.
Well, I've been saying for a
We-
couple of weeks now that I thought it was a
Well,
noise
that's what,
ordinance.
that's sort of what I alerted to, as we went through the due diligence and talked about this and researched it ourselves, we're all coming back to the same thing, that it's really a noise ordinance that we have to pass if we're gonna take any action. There is a working document that we created last year that I know I shared with Chris. But the noise ordinance from last year we did, that we voted against pursuing, it's a start.
Well, and I think part of the issue was, when, Chief, if you were to charge somebody under the misdemeanor of, or a Class A felony. Anyways, no, just a misdemeanor of, disturbing the peace, you don't measure the sound, right?
No.
You don't have a way to measure the sound, right?
Correct.
Do you have to, in order to bring a case against somebody, have a way to measure the sound?
It would depend on, like if you were talking about a loud motorcycle, or a loud car.
But that's covered separately in state law.
Correct, under defective equipment or
Correct.
something that, correct.
But what I'm saying is if you got Frank Byron sitting out in his front lawn chucking fireworks,
Right.
whatever, and the neighbor calls upset and I say,
Yep.
take a hike, and they call the police, you don't have to go out there and measure, okay, that firecracker was
Correct.
whatever, right?
That's correct.
You just charge me with disturbing the peace and away I go.
Yep.
Serving 10 to 20 years.
Debauchery.
So, I would think that a noise ordinance would cover this. And personally, I would think that, I know in this noise ordinance draft, there was a number, I think, Jason, we had written in of 75 decibels. I don't know if that's dBA or dBB, if you want to get
Yeah.
technical. But,
We also have the option of charging it as a violation.
under current state law,
Correct.
See, so
But if we
you'd want to come up with a noise ordinance to protect the citizen from being arrested that was
Which they can do anyway.
basically be belligerent to an officer.
no, not at all.
That's the only way they would get arrested. They said, if you're going to a party that's loud and you walk in and you say, guys, calm it down, they calm it down, that's the end of it.
Mhm.
If the guy gets in your face, he's going to jail. So this ordinance is not gonna stop that.
Hang on. Let me address Mr. Perry's question. I'll be glad to address yours. I just got done asking the chief a series of questions saying, what could you charge somebody with? I was told that you could charge somebody with a misdemeanor. The chief, just before you guys piled on,
Sorry.
stated that, well, we can also take that down to a violation.
Correct.
That's news now that I just received, that I didn't hear before. So that changes.
I guess part of me, you being the chief, you know what happens in town, right? And I asked you a little bit earlier, how many complaints you have, and you don't have that many,
Right.
right? And I just, again, I know we touched on it last year. Myself, I don't see it as a problem, you know what I mean? I mean, like John said, treat your neighbor with respect, right? But, I mean, that's my feeling on it, and it's.
We probably have
Maybe.
more hungry people in town than we have people complaining about noise.
Exactly, and it's.
I think, as we wrote it, my biggest hesitation last year was creating a measuring mechanism for it. I really get uncomfortable when we start, because we looked at some point, hey, do we put a threshold amount in there? And when we put a threshold amount in, now I need meters, now I need to maintain those meters, now I need to train
Officers.
I need to train people in the operation of those meters, because if I'm ever challenged on the veracity of those meters, and so all of a sudden, now I've created an infrastructure.
The other issue is that the officer has to arrive during the sound and be able to capture that. 9 times out of 10, when the call comes in, by the time you get there, the noise is either gone down.
But the chief said he doesn't have to do that.
Well, if the neighbor is complaining, they can certainly address it, I guess, that's what I'm hearing. But again, you're gonna go in, and they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna quiet down, we didn't realize we were that loud, and it's over with. And unless you get a repeat call, it's a done deal. And that's what happens I think that happens almost 90% of the time.
So what happens, chief, in terms of a violation on this? You said you could write down a misdemeanor to a violation.
Right.
How does that work? What is the penalty?
It could be as much as be of good behavior for 6 months, and then it goes away completely.
But that is also a court appearance and all that stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Don't go too far.
I won't.
All right, so, not that I wanna mix the things together, but we do have the firework.
I was gonna say, since you've already started down this road, do you want to continue down?
I'd like to, because
Maybe
either
we
we're
can
gonna
figure out
just.
where we're going.
Right, either we're gonna just table it and continue the noise ordinance discussion, or we're gonna table both and not do nothing. I mean, to me, I'm in agreement that it's really a noise ordinance thing. Anything else is just gonna create more headaches.
So, under the note section in fireworks on your notes, I put a couple things here. One, just some background on this, that there is a class of fireworks in the state called unregulated novelty fireworks. So when you're talking about any sort of ordinance impacting fireworks, there's a class created in state law. It does not include, you're not regulating sparklers, for instance. There's a certain group that is here. I did, towns around the state do a variety of things. I gave you a copy of this year's list that's published by the state of what towns do what. So many towns, you look at the list, many towns choose not to respond. But there's a handful that regulate and limit in some ways, and then there are some that are completely unlimited. Since we have been coming at this issue from a variety of different directions, we've just spent some time looking at, if you come at it from the noise area, we had a draft noise ordinance that, if you want to revisit it through that gateway, we have that foundation. I gave you another one. Let's see, if we start with the one that is called alternate A, this one is a permitting system. If you wish to have consumer fireworks, you get a permit through the fire department for display for safe usage and display of those fireworks. This is not coming at it from a noise point of view. It's really coming at it from a public safety fire risk point of view, and recognizing that there is a hazard associated with fireworks as well. We regulate and permit backyard burns, which are generally on the ground and burning. If you shoot something flaming in the air, we don't permit it. So there is kind of a point of entry there to say, do you want to look at it through that way? That is a model that some towns use. Second option, which I gave as alternate B, is a much narrower one, which basically limits, the way this is written right now, it limits the consumer fireworks to the hours of noon and 11 on Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, and the days around July 4th. Those, and then beyond that, they're banned entirely. Again, trying to give you a couple options to say if any of these look interesting as a starting point to modify from, or none of them do. But the combination of these three were kind of the best that I could give you to start the conversation. Noise, fire risk permitting, some sort of date and time ban.
I'll touch on the fire permitting. The state doesn't do that, so I don't think we could do that. The state is the one who issues the permits for the campfire, for burning. They don't issue permits for shooting off fireworks, right? So if the state doesn't do it, I don't feel that us as a town should do that.
Okay, all right, I mean, yeah, this is, yeah, that's fair.
Following?
Yep.
That's fair, yep, I mean, other towns do come at it this way. You're right that the authority.
Yeah, let's not beat up Jason for trying to.
No, I'm not beating him
No,
up. I'm just bringing up a point.
Yeah, I mean, he trying to come up with different variables so that we can have a successful conversation before we move forward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I said it earlier, I'm not in favor of any one of them, whether it's a noise, firework, or permissible permit. I think the state RSAs are clear. I think our police department and fire departments will address the ones that are outside of that. And I just think it's putting burden on all of us. So that's my opinion, but anybody else have any feedback on either one of them?
My skin cringed when I read through them all.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe that.
I had to coax him along to write something so we had something to work with. It wasn't pretty. I mean, I personally, I'll cut the whole conversation short. I'll make a motion that we table the discussion around a noise ordinance and or firework ban or permitting system. So motion's made and seconded. Discussion?
I'd like to amend the motion, Mr. Chairman, and state that the chair will get back in touch with the people who have filed complaints.
Sure.
And to notify them of the actions taken by the board.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made, amended and seconded. Discussion on the amendment? I'm sure you and I can work together on a letter that explains why we did what we did. All right, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Amendment passes 4-0-0. Now on the amended main motion. Any discussion? This, obviously, this does not stop or can't talk. If the folks still believe they want to come forward with a petition warrant article, they obviously can. So, and obviously, yeah, so. All right, no discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0. So that issue is closed.
It's tabled.
Tabled, sorry, yes, it's tabled. Tabled.
Which can be taken from the table.
All right, it is 7:10, so why don't we open up the floor for public input?
Hello again, Chris Pascucci, 12th Colonial. Want to speak a little for a second philosophical since this is community input. First, I want to say I encourage anybody that wants to think about banning fireworks to start a petition. And I will bring it, if you need a signature, bring it to me, I'll sign it, because that's the way the government should work in something like this. If somebody's concerned enough to gather signatures, you only need 25, I will sign that, and I'll get other people, I'll help get the 25 signatures and let it go to discussion. Clearly, I'll make my opinions known at that time of discussion, but I think if a citizen brings it forward, it should be discussed. That's the way I think it should happen. Now for the philosophical part. I was about a teenager growing up in New Jersey, and I remember the Democratic governor back then, late 70s, early 80s, banned sunny side up eggs. You couldn't serve no restaurant could serve sunny side up eggs because the governor wanted to protect us from the potential salmonella. And boy, that was a turning point. I was just a kid, but I realized, and I learned a lot then, and I take this very seriously. Obviously, it was overturned because you take sunny side up eggs away from everybody, they'll storm the State House. But what typically happens, it's incrementalism. Governing bodies just ban little things at a time, and they take away our liberties, they take away our freedoms, and they always do it in the name of, we're here to protect you. Where somebody complained, and it might be a little too loud, or a little too this, or a little too that, you can't, pretty soon, I know it sounds outrageous, right? You're not going to be able to buy a 32-ounce soda. That's impossible, because, it's no good for you. You can't smoke in public areas, never mind in private buildings. You can't serve salt in restaurants. That's where it gets to. So for anybody watching, I sympathize that it's loud and noisy on the nights when there's fireworks. I agree, it is. But what makes this country great, more importantly now certain states in the country, because certain states are already overboard, and then more important, Litchfield, we self-govern here. We're a conservative town. We don't need to be protected from every little thing. We have great people in this town. We have a fantastic police force. And if somebody got out of hand, if the neighbors couldn't get it under control, the police force certainly could. And there is remedies if there are those 1 or 2 people out of the 8,000 we have that go overboard. We don't need more rules and regulations and banning. So I appreciate that this conversation is tabled, and I hope, at least from the perspective of you guys bringing it to a warrant, it's forgotten. But yet, I would encourage if somebody wanted to bring it to a petition warrant, I would support getting it to petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? Seeing none, public input closed at 7:08. All right, administrative report, new business. Police officer vacancy. This was asked to put on the agenda by Mr. Byron.
Yep.
So, Frank, you want to talk to that?
Sure. Currently, we have an open position for a police officer. We have promoted sergeant, and I keep going back to catch-22 with major, but I won't go into that. So we promoted Officer Sergeant to the sergeant level, and we're now looking to replace an officer. In 2008, the Litchfield Board of Selectmen conducted, or with Chief's participation, conducted an analysis of the police department. It was conducted by a company called Municipal Resources Incorporated, MRI, and there was a large report that was written on that. And in that report, it talked about what the appropriate staffing was for the officers and things like that. I'm asking the question really as to whether we should or shouldn't replace the officer, and whether it makes sense or not. I think that any time a position becomes open, we ought to take the opportunity to question whether it's the right thing to do to replace it. And I think that in this particular case, that we should do that as well. I do know the chief is here to address questions and answer questions, so I'm assuming that you guys have got something choreographed, so have at it.
Nothing's choreographed on my part.
No, I would simply say that where we are right now is, overall in terms of staffing, is behind the recommendation that the MRI report made for overall staffing within the department. That at this point, they recommended having 9 full-time officers and 8 part-time officers, which is a level we're not at. That said, what I dug out from a conversation we had last year, a chart that basically took the available hours we had for members of the department, made a discount for maximum, minimum amounts of vacation time, earned time they would take, holiday, allocation for sick, those that participate in the special operations unit, or participate in military leave, to come up with an actual number of hours we have available to us. And this is looking at two officers, 24/7, 365. And what this came up with was, with our full-time officers as it is now, we have a shift deficit of between 138 and 264 shifts. And I think when we had this conversation, it was on that sort of sweet spot of, are we at a level where we need to bring on another officer? And these numbers didn't really completely support that. That gap we have of about 1,100 hours to 2,100 hours, depending on how things align, that's where we cover with our 3 part-time officers, not the 8 as recommended, with 3. We sort of rotate through on that. When we have issues in the department where we may not have that full complement of officers available, we use the part-timers, and we have rolling shifts where there may not be 2 officers. Now, when we remove 1 officer out of that mix, so basically what would happen if we didn't fill the vacant position? The deficit in shifts goes to 374 to 489. In real hours, about 3,000 to 4,000 hours. So that is 1.5 to almost 2 full-time officer equivalents, which makes sense. If you look at the staffing level, it should bring it up to a higher level. So with that, with not having those hours available to us in rotation, would severely cut our ability to cover all of the shifts that are out there. I think that is sort of the starting point of the logic that we looked at. And again, with the recommendation through the MRI report, I mean, we're not sitting here asking to add new positions. We're simply trying to fill the positions that have already been approved
By the voters.
by the voters that are out there. I mean, this would be, if we were following where we should be in 2010, we should be proposing more police officers.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back to the MRI report and actually see what it says. The MRI report says that they use population-based staffing in order to try and come up with the number of officers needed. It says, quote, "A guideline often used to determine the reasonableness of staffing is the number of police officers per thousand population. The Federal Bureau of Investigation calculates the average number of police officers per thousand population in various regions of the country, which is included in its annual Uniform Crime Report. These figures are often cited as the FBI's recommended staffing levels, but they are simply a guide, as indicated by the FBI as follows. Quote, "Because the differing service requirements and functions, care should be taken when using the data presented in this section to draw comparisons between and among the staffing levels of law enforcement agencies. What follows is not intended as recommended or preferred officer strength. The data should be viewed merely as guides. Adequate staffing levels can be determined only after careful study of conditions that affect the service requirements of a particular jurisdiction." So the MRI report itself says that their basis for determining the number of officers, which was population-based, really shouldn't necessarily follow suit. At the time of the MRI report, which is 2008, Litchfield's population was 8,307, which is documented in the MRI report and was the basis of their numbers. Since that time, Litchfield has grown at most about 200 head count. So there is not a strong growth in the community, okay? Other information which I is questioning is, as I understand it right now, we have 2 patrol officers and a sergeant on each shift, is that correct? Not each shift, but that's what we're normally staffing, is that correct?
No.
No?
No.
What are we doing?
We have, we staggered the sergeants, so we'll have, at times, a sergeant and a patrol officer.
And you don't have a second officer also out on patrol?
Not all the time, no.
What do you mean by not all the time? I'm asking if that's the way you're proposing to do it by the addition of this officer.
This is not an addition to this officer, though. This is an officer we already had, we already
It's
lost.
just a position that's being.
It's a position we already had.
I'm asking the question, if you could please, let me ask the question. What I'm trying to understand is, if this officer gets hired, I don't care what you want to call it, not added or whatever, pick a term, but if the officer gets added, are you intending to have 2 patrol officers and a sergeant on the shifts?
No.
So what do you,
There are times, because of the way the rotation works, that for a couple hours during a day, you may have 2 officers and a sergeant, but that's not the norm.
so how do we use the sergeants then?
We use the sergeants to cover a majority, they cover 7 days a week, and they come in 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 1 in the morning. So they're covering the peak times when there isn't a supervisor on duty.
And there are times. Now, again,
During the day.
if you look at, if you go to the chart, and this is the problem of taking the MRI report and using the whole thing as gospel. I'm not sure if you,
Well, I don't think we are
no,
anyway,
but
right?
in all fairness, I appreciate Frank's point about benchmarks for number of officers. Now, in terms of scheduling, what's very interesting is in some spots, the report says your staffing should be a sergeant and patrol officer, period. But if you look at the chart on page 75 for a proposed table of organization, it shows a very different layout. It shows a layout of shift 1 sergeant, 2 police officers. Shift 2 police officers, 1 school officer. Shift 3, 1 sergeant, 2 police officers. So there's an aspirational element there as well. So I think part of this is the department needs, and the appropriate level of staffing is sort of as a blend from this, using the chief's professional knowledge. On the other hand, what we're back to is whether this isn't a conversation about staffing 3 and 2. If you go back to the availability table, which is not based on a benchmark of how many officers externally it says we have.
Just pure hours.
It's pure hours, and it's based on 2 officers, 24/7, 365, with the sergeants in that mix. Drop one of those officers out, and we can't cover the empty hours that are there.
And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that I believe this board has indicated in the past that it's our goal to have 2 officers on at all times. The sergeants would perform administrative duties, but they're also doing some patrol work. And we sold the last full-time position, when we presented the last full-time position to the public that voted yes for it, which is this seat we're trying to replace, they were in support of it because we're trying to get 2 officers consistently out there to do patrol work. And right now, there are times, like the chief said, that we're not getting to that level. And I don't know why we want to go backwards, obviously.
So let me continue with the MRI report. It says, the department organization that we propose calls for the promotion of 2 officers to the rank of sergeant. It says, these 2 supervisory officers would be responsible for the activities of the department in the absence of the lieutenant and the chief. They would be assigned to the evening and midnight shifts and would work on the road as a second officer on duty. The lieutenant and chief would oversee the day shift operations.
And that's what happens, yeah.
So, and that's great. Now, the graph you're referring to here that lists from present, which was late 2007 until 2010, shows that we should be going up to 9 officers and 2 sergeants, 2 animal control officers, 3 dispatchers, that type of thing.
Right.
Okay, this is all based upon the growth in the population, which hasn't occurred.
But we're not doing that, Frank. We've actually discussed
and-
on hiring more because we don't see the need.
My question goes back to, it was my understanding that we were having 3 people on a shift, and I guess that was my question, and that's where I was headed.
I think what you heard the chief say was that there is at times 3 people on shift, 2 patrol, and a sergeant doing supervisor work. But the supervisor's work is, a significant amount of it can be in-house.
What work can be a significant amount of house?
The significant amount of work that the sergeant does is in-house.
What is the sergeant doing, by the way?
There's a number of tasks that they do. They handle all of the reports that come in. They review those. They review all the arrests to make sure that the arrests are done properly and we don't get sued for false arrests or any other violations. They also review the use of force. They conduct any training or any issues that come up, legal issues that come up. They handle all of the scheduling. Our supervisors also conduct a lot of the training in the department, the firearms training, the use of force training, a lot of the high liability stuff.
What's a lieutenant do?
The lieutenant handles a lot of administrative stuff also. He's in charge of the 2 sergeants. He handles any complaints that come in from citizens in reference to officers. He handles a number of budgetary items and stuff like that.
Okay.
Any other questions for the chief, or any motions? All set?
Fine.
Do you have a motion? Make a
No,
motion.
I'm fine.
Okay.
If I was gonna make a motion, believe me, I would have
I
made
know,
it by
I know.
now. If you doubt that,
No, no, I'm not doing anything. All right. While the chief's here, and before the chief leaves, 'cause I know he's been here since 7 o'clock this morning. Can we just update the board on car 5?
Sure. Car 5, again, just a reminder, that's one of the 2010 Crown Vics that we've retained, is out of service again. Londonderry Ford has reviewed what its issues would be and what it will take to make it patrol worthy. Their service manager has reviewed all of the service with car 5 and is recommending, since there were overheating issues with the engine, or the engine should be replaced, we're looking at a cost of about $4,000 to $5,000. Radiator, associated hoses, water pump, transmission replacement, about $2,800, brake line and hoses, $1,400, rear end, $1,200, suspension quote, which is what triggered all of this first review, about $4,300. So all told, this is about $14,000 of recommended repair.
I have to ask, what's wrong with the suspension?
I can answer that for you. I got met with the union president, and he is assigned to that car. He told me this car rides horrible and it's unsafe. So I got in the car with him. We drove at 60 miles an hour on 3A, and it does not handle the road.
What's the speed limit?
If an officer tells you, you can speed under state statute.
Go ahead, Chief.
So what happened is,
I gotta remember that one.
But it was very uneasy on the road. It didn't handle the road at all. When he put on the brakes, it was such a loud chatter inside. You could feel it clunking underneath the car.
I guess the reason why I asked, because $4,300 for suspension. I mean, talking about springs, shocks.
Everything.
All the way around.
Idler arms, the upper lower ball joints.
Never mind the motor. I mean, this is a 2010 car. We're gonna put a new motor in it?
What's the mileage on the motor?
Well, it's 2010.
110,000.
10, yeah.
We did the Ford calculation. It comes out to 273,000.
If you calculate the idle hours, yeah. The reason why I asked to bring it up is, I mean, this is good money after good money into bad cars after bad cars. This car has already had a significant amount of money put into it this year alone, just trying to keep it on the road. And I don't want to see us spend $12,000 to $14,000 on a car that isn't roadworthy to begin with. And the longer we continue with this problem, the impact to the other two cars we already have.
I understand that, but on the same token, we already went down this road maybe a month ago. Maybe a month. It might be almost 2 months now. And the discussion was around the money that we have on hand to do anything. And the concern is we didn't have it. And there was.
Well, we don't have $12,000 neither. So how do we fix it?
Oh, I understand. So what are we looking for tonight? Because, I mean, in my opinion, park it.
The chief wasn't looking for anything. I wanted the board to be aware of it, because I just found out about it myself. Personally, I'm prepared to make a motion to authorize them to go find another car, not to exceed $40,000, and then figure out how to finance it. We have no to me, we have no choice. We're down one car.
There's always a car that sits, right? You rotate the cars. You need 4 cars at all times?
There's 3 cars that run.
We need 4 cars as well.
There's 3 cars that run every day, and it rotates. One car is always falling out. So it's 16
They always
hours.
run 16 hours.
16 hours on, 16 hours off is what they, or 8 hours
In a
on.
24-hour period.
Yeah. So there's always one car that's idle for a couple hours, or a couple hours.
I hate to say it, but in my opinion, I mean, if we weren't in the position 2 months ago and we said we were gonna talk about this again at the end of September, I mean, unless we're in a different financial situation than we were 2 months ago, park the car, use the cars that we have, they continue to get additional wear, we just need to continually go after getting more cars and asking for more.
The challenge is car 6 has been the same problem. So what happens when car 6 goes down? Now we're down to 2 cars.
Which car was in the accident?
Car 6.
4.
6.
Okay.
6.
Trust me, I know.
Is it back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, my thought is that, because it's gonna, even if, let's say we have to address it in September, right? We talked about doing it then. It's gonna take 6 to 8 weeks to get a car anyway. So why can't we go out and put the feeler to get a car ordered? I don't see how it come the end of the year, we're gonna be in a situation we have to get this car.
I understand where's the money coming from.
Well, let me give you 2 answers on that. One is, the later it gets in the year, we'll tighten up the numbers, we may be able to
Defer next year.
we may be able to find sufficient cash to buy it outright. I'm not entirely confident about that, but, you know, I mean, because remember when the last I ran the numbers for you, I was showing about $100,000. Nothing has radically changed to give me a great new perspective on it. That said, you know, there is the answer, and this is the answer that people don't want to hear, but, you know, there's a point at which you look at it again of, you do a lease purchase. You do 10 this year, and you push whatever else out into a future year. It is the same situation that we found ourselves in last year. You know, we bought with low cash last year, and we pushed a higher number out for 2 more years. I mean, you hate to keep kicking the can down the road, but we're between a rock and a hard place. So, I did not run any numbers at this point. I've offered a lot of numbers in the past, so, if you have a preference or want a couple scenarios, you know, over the next couple weeks, I can put something together. But, I think the fair point is you are looking, best case, 6-8 weeks out to have something available.
I mean, maybe the motion is simple enough to have the chief and Jason go out and find a car and bring back what that car would cost. Because like I said, we're still looking at 6 to 9 weeks before we can even receive a car.
We can probably look at the chief's numbers from 2 months ago and know what the car costs.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, we know what the cost, $40,000 all fit. We know what the cost is, but if we delay the decision, it means we're delaying getting a car into service anytime sooner. So we're already looking at 6 to 9 weeks anyway to get a car into service. Never mind probably a 1 to 4 week search period, because I guess they're just starting to make the cars again. Right, next batch.
The lack of appropriate planning all the way through is what's gotten us to where we are today,
Absolutely correct.
okay? So if we have to put more burden on the 4 or 5 cars that we have left,
We have 3 cars left.
whatever, we won't rest a car. We'll just run them 24 hours a day. And if we have a 2013 that's got 120,000 miles on it at the end of next year, you know what? The voter needs to know we need another car.
Right.
End of story.
Mhm.
If we weren't comfortable a month and a half, 2 months ago, I don't see how we're comfortable today.
I just think we have options.
And I voted for that, just for the record,
Voted for what?
to purchase another car last time.
I know. It was a split vote, 2-2, I think it was all done.
Right. I'm just making the point that
You know, at the end of the
we
day.
said we were gonna wait, so it's like I accepted my defeat. I'm ready to wait.
But the problem though, Steve, the problem now is the situation is changing. When we decided to wait, we had 2 cars that were functional with minor repairs that were happening. Now we have a car that requires an engine and suspension.
We had 4 cars.
We had 4
We had
cars.
5 and 6, and we had
3 and 4.
whatever the new ones are, Chief.
Right, 3 and 4. Right. Now, we're down to 3 cars unless we're willing to put in $14,000 into car 5. And I think throwing money at car 5 is a waste. We're also down a detail car. I think we always brought up, one of the detail cars died, and so we're down to 1 detail car.
All right, let me ask you this one. This is a crapshoot, but I'm going to you, Jason. The auctions that the state has, there cruisers there?
State auction, probably not. I haven't seen any. However, don't shudder, John. I did notice on the Municipal Association website, a town near us that has seen fit to upgrade their cruisers, selling 2 Crown Vics that have 75,000 miles or thereabouts on them.
What do they want for them?
I don't know. That's sealed bid.
And the reason I ask that is because I would assume that we would find that because there's plenty of towns that get rid of their cars at 60,000, 70,000.
Well, 80 to 90,000.
Some towns, I believe Hudson actually will get rid of their cars after 2 years, even with 50,000.
And the
No,
county,
they're-
county runs them 100,000.
Yeah. Hudson does it, when we did the research, they were doing 3 years or 80,000 or 90,000 miles.
My reason for asking the question was, I bet you if we looked, we could find something. Maybe that's a
But we're-
better short-term option.
But we're acquiring someone else's crap.
Yes and no.
Yes, we are. I mean, Chief, take another department's car. I mean,
You know what, maybe we can sell ours.
I mean, you can look at it this way. $14,000 is gonna put a whole new drivetrain and suspension on this vehicle. At a 2010, I guarantee it has no rot problems.
Well, that
So-
14,000 is probably worst case scenario, right?
And $14,000 would make that car run probably 3 more years.
I don't know if that's worst case, but.
I have an 02, and it's been rotten for about 2 years now. And it still runs.
Crown Vic?
No. Well, actually, my dad has a Grand Marquis with 196,000 miles that he's trading in this weekend. I'll donate it to the town.
Can I give a real life scenario?
Yeah.
Okay, we have car 5, really is in bad shape. It needs to be done right. So now we're down to 3 cruisers. We have car 6, that is identical to car 5. It's already had a catastrophic steering failure. It's a frontline police car. We have our brand new car 4. It's not even a year and a half old, has 50,000 miles on it. When car 6 fails like car 5 did, we're down to 2 cars. If we take it for an oil change or something happens with the brakes, we're down to 1.
Can I ask you a question?
That's very realistic.
All the cars are Fords, right?
Yes.
Is it an issue with the Fords?
No,
It seems like we have all these problems, and all the problems we have, they're all with a Ford car. Maybe it's time to.
The reason being is because they're police frontline cruisers.
Our problem is we've not
Every
managed.
single town.
Our problem, we need to stop. Our problem is we continue to not manage the fleet correctly. Every time we come forward, we get into this debate back and forth. And I get what Steve's saying, but Steve was also the one that authorized, helped get the 2010s we had, back in 2010. And as you said, we screwed up. We were supposed to have a plan in place, and we never dealt with it. We had it was always some other priorities. So, and then we got the 2 cruises. We should have done the 3 cruises when we originally asked for it, but this board didn't support the 3. So now we're still down to 2 and 2. The 2 cruises we keep on trying to put Band-Aids on is costing this town more money than it would be just to go ahead and do another purchase lease and pay the lease price. Yes, we're kicking it down the can, I get that, but we can't afford it, and that's why we do leasing, so we can afford it.
So, the bottom line on it is this board was concerned, and I believe rightfully so, that when this was brought forward to us earlier in the year, or 2 months ago, whatever the case may
2
be,
months ago.
that we had no idea where the hell this budget was gonna go. The budget we felt was very tight, and we had some concern about that, and I think the board made the right decision at that time to consider delaying this till later in the year.
Mhm.
I don't have a problem going forward with getting cruises, but what we've gotta do is manage the budget. This is a budget issue, it's not a cruiser issue. And if you're gonna do this, you've gotta manage the budget by making sure that you give yourself breathing space within the budget so that you don't crash and burn. Because, as I said then, and I'll say again, we have no idea where this budget's gonna go. So if Jason can dig out an additional 40, or whatever the case the number may be, I have no problem. If we need cruises, we need cruises, so be it.
I will state for the record again that I have mentioned before. If we have $40,000, we should pay off the lease that we have for the 2 cruises for next year and release 2 more vehicles. That way there, you keep your 40 number rolling.
I don't think, what's remaining on the lease?
It's like 40, hold on a sec, it's like 40.
Like 44, 45.
45, I think.
But I'm not sure that
To
buys you anything.
to be honest, it clears out one issue that we
But-
have, and
Well, all it does is it pays off the cars now, but it leaves you without an additional car. Now,
no, he could then, he
What
could
he's
go
saying
into a
is
new
if
lease.
you find, if
If I
you
go
find the
into a new
40s,
see,
so then you'd have,
my point is, you've gotta give yourself breathing space within the budget in order to do this.
So I agree with the budget comp. The problem I have is that we have a department that's down 1 car. They can't effectively run with the 3 cars they have because it puts a tremendous burden. If you think 6 running around the clock is going to help the situation, it's going to go down.
6 was the one in the accident?
Right.
I actually stated that I thought we should have scrapped the car for the
I
$3,000 we
did
got from
too.
the insurance company.
I did too, but then again, we're back to 3 cars. We can't effectively run the department with only 2 cars. So to me, we can sit there and keep on kicking it down the decision on the budget. Maybe we make the decision, go, whatever it is, take $40,000 of the bottom line of budget, and we'll figure out how to fit it in. And we'll scrap it
This
down.
isn't that hard, for crying out loud, all we gotta do is instruct Jason, find the additional money, and if that means delaying things, delay things.
All right.
And instruct the chief to go get and find a car.
I make a motion that we instruct the town administrator to find the funding for a new cruiser of not to exceed $40,000, and instruct the chief to go order a car. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Stevie.
Why would we limit the motion to finding one vehicle? What if he can come back and say he's got this financial wizardry that he can come up with a lease that's gonna get us 3 cars for $15,000 a year because the state feels like giving them away? Let's not limit the motion to what he's actually going to find as much as just finding the money to make available for cruiser purchases.
Amended.
I'm just making sure that before I do that there's some consensus here, because I am very reluctant, and I'll say it now, to push forward any money towards another cruiser when we still have a cruiser payment next year. Very reluctant.
Whether he and I'm agree with you, whether he takes the money we just authorized, pay off the other ones, and then turn the new lease that deals with everything, fine.
But if you,
I'm just saying, $40,000, go find me a car. Simplicity of what I've asked him.
And what if he comes back with 20?
20.
I can only come up with $20,000 that I could say you should use to go purchase a car. Now,
We're gonna have to.
you enter a lease agreement, and then next year you're gonna have a $40,000 or $45,000 to pay off the lease you entered last year, and then you're gonna have probably another 45, 50, 60, 80 to pay off whatever new agreement you're in.
I agree.
Amend the motion then, or wrote it down and come up with your own motion. Steve, I don't know how to solve it. We need a car. And yes, I would like to see us do 2 cars, ultimately, but we need a car.
I'll make an amendment to the motion that Jason comes back to us with an overall budget outlook of what he has available, and the chief searches out the options that is available to us at our next meeting for purchasing, leasing, whatever it takes, 1, 2 new cruisers.
Second.
Okay, motion has been amended and seconded. Discussion.
yeah, I hate to say it, Steve, I disagree with you, your thought, and I know the emotion doesn't include that. Moving money around like you're discussing isn't necessarily solving the problem. It decreases next year, but inflates this year, so you're just taking from one pocket, and moving it to the other pocket. But I'm off subject, so.
Okay, any other comment, discussion? All those in the favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0. Now back to the main amended the main amended motion. Discussion. So, we're asking for you to go find the money and go see what we can get for cars and timeline.
Now, I perfectly well understand that, Jason, you're showing $100,000 as right now your buffer. I don't know if that's reasonable. I don't know if that, I mean, I've looked at your numbers, and I'm not saying that your numbers are unreasonable, but I don't know if that's reasonable because of what the future holds, is really what I'm trying to say. And all I'm saying is, let's squeeze the Jason Hoke until he finds the money in the budget, and that maintains that $100,000 buffer, and at the same time gets us what we need, which we're hearing from the chief, is a vehicle that can be reliable and in the field.
I couldn't agree more, because what I didn't say was that I feel we should maintain the $100,000 range cushion we have today. It should be additional money found.
Yeah, I agree
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
That's my
Knowing
whole
Jason,
point.
he's gonna figure out some way around
me,
that,
it's
because
a budget issue.
he doesn't like not having that.
You're not gonna get a recommendation from me that impacts that $100,000, because that's how I deal with, Frank asked about the uncertainty. That's how I deal with it, is I'm pretty pessimistic in some of those things, but in my projections, but I still need to leave some space. That's you spending at 98%, and I'm also keenly aware of one of the very few things that can remove all of you, my employers, from office, is overspending that bottom line.
You know what happens when that happens, Jason?
I come visit all of you on my way to employment security to, I'm going to tell you that, the answers, I'll run the projections again. The answers I'm going to have are probably not ones that are going to be overly palatable.
I think what we have to do at this point is make tough decisions as to what we fund and what we don't fund.
And I think that's exactly what, there are some things that we probably shouldn't do. Right?
Well,
Holdbacks, whatever it is, I think.
I can give you $40,000 right now in two chunks. First chunk is we take the water district reimbursement of $16,750. And then none of my projections that I've done for the operating budget show us using any of the winter maintenance trust fund to cover our salt overages. I've figured out how to cover all of those overages through other changes in the budget. If you pull $25,000 in from that fund to cover money from the general fund, you take $16,000 from that water district, there's your $40,000.
Great, find another 40.
And after you've done that, we'll get another 40 out of you.
Let's stop trying to get blood from a stone. All right, any other discussion? So all those in favor of the amended main motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0. So I'm expecting on the 28th you'll have.
I'll have a
Corrections.
variety of unpleasant choices for you to make.
Can we also get copies of the, or do you have a copy, or did you get something, Chief, I don't know, from Ford of Londonderry showing the estimated repairs and stuff?
I can.
Okay.
I have the one on the suspension.
And the service,
Do you have it on the engine as well, does it
No.
include the engine?
No, that was called into me today from the,
and the service writer, and the service manager said he'd talk to anybody who wants to talk about
yes.
it.
I was
Well,
gonna
I
say,
don't
could
wanna-
you just call him and
I
get him to
just-
send you a quote for all that?
I'm sure I'm gonna be
For
asked.
what he recommended?
Yeah.
That way there, it's in front of us.
All right, before the chief goes, is there anything else for the chief? I think that clears everything. Chief, thank you.
Thank you,
Chief, I wanna thank you for staying until almost 8 o'clock at night.
absolutely. Dinner should be ready.
Hey, pick up a pizza or something.
Yeah.
Dinner might even be
Say
cold by
hi,
now.
say hi
Time to get
to,
home, your pillow will be calling your name.
Yeah.
All right, moving to old business.
Actually, before we leave cruisers, we might as well, one more thing in that general area. We received a 91A request today,
Oh, yes, yep.
for any and all records of Litchfield purchase or lease of police vehicles over the last 5 years, and a copy of the ledger accounting, the payments were made from. And this came from Jason Garrett.
So, have you responded to him yet?
No, we will respond within the 5 days as required by law, sooner rather than later. I fired this off with a clarification of either a couple things I wanted to clarify with town council.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it is simply the straightforward leases and the confirmation of payments, that's a breeze. They're all out there.
Didn't he already get the leases at one point?
I think the current one, yeah. So it just, when somebody says any and all, that opens up many doors. And so I want to make sure that we're being appropriately responsive to that, but not leaving anything out.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that?
Nope.
Old business, gas price question.
Gas price question.
So Steve, this started with your question originally,
Yep.
so.
Yep. There had been a question, oh geez, I guess this has been hanging out since June as I look at this here, about prices we see at the consumer and price we pay for delivery from Burke. There's a swing between them. Gas station prices are likely lagged from daily market prices. They work through product. Burke is the lone state bid. We put together a chart that showed the difference between the average state price and the Burke price. It does vary. There are very few weeks where we pay below market and some were above market. Also added a chart there, remember we're getting gas just down the street at the highway department because it's being delivered to us as opposed to going out of town. So I ran an opportunity cost of the MPO hourly rate, assume a 20-minute trip out of town, 6 fills a day. It's going to cost us $73 to fill a tank out of town. The question was, well, why is the price different? And how can you clarify we're not paying the gas tax? So the rate we pay is the Journal of Commerce, Boston, Mass. Low reformulated, in effect on the day of delivery, at the designated octane level from the daily petroleum prices section, and the markup price of 48 cents a gallon, which includes transportation and all other charges. There is no tax included in that rate. Delivery charge is based on both distance from Boston as well as the relative small amount, 300, 400 gallons we use. Last week, we also had been talking with Burke about locking in something more as a fixed price, sort of a futures. We know what we buy, so can we lock in something as a fixed price? What we were able to lock in was which a week ago seemed like a great idea, $3.22 a gallon, effective from now to the end of the year. And then we would revisit in 2015.
Does that 322 include the 48 cents?
I believe it does.
Okay.
I mean, the issue is we're paying a premium because it's being delivered here. There is no tax being baked in. There is no tax in there. The opportunity cost, because it's not like we don't have a gas station in town. We can't run to the end of the road and pick something up.
I disagree with you.
Well, 7-Eleven's in town.
Yeah.
It's still.
Okay, I'm
it's
sorry.
still-
Sorry,
still
that's
high.
unfair. That's true. We do have
Still
one in
high.
town, but it is not right around the corner from the police station.
So the
Coulda had one.
322 does include the 48 cents, so we're actually paying $2.70-something cents?
$3.
No, minus
No,
48
2?
cents is what he's saying.
Minus 48 cents.
No.
Yeah.
No, the 322 is gonna be the lock-in rate before delivery.
Well, I just asked him. I
He
think
just
said-
asked a question, and I'm trying to make sure I understand correctly.
I thought it was all included. That seems nonsensical, though, so.
That's why I'm asking the
Right,
question.
okay, well, I mean, we'll have to check. We'll check.
That's fine.
I mean, I'm not looking, I'll be honest, I'm not looking for authorization for gas purchase price.
Understood, but
That's a fair question.
on the other side of the coin, if you add this back in, now we're up to
Now you're
370
up to 360 and we're no better off.
Right.
Right, if we assume the the first of the year was
Right.
362, or first of 2013, we were paying $3.14 a gallon.
Right.
If you deduct the 48 cents a gallon charges, would make sense. As far as the price.
Right, but what I'm saying is now we haven't made any gains on this
Right.
if we agree to 322, if the 48 cents gets added onto it.
Correct.
Yeah, we're back where we're
In
at.
fact, we're paying more now than we
Right,
would be
right,
if we
well,
took a
then-
credit card and went down and purchased it. And you can say opportunity costs and everything else, but there's also a savings you have to deduct for the gas as well.
There is, and if you look at the estimated difference, that we're looking at for,
I can add to you.
what?
322 is everything.
So that-
Including the 48?
Everything.
Great
Oh,
job.
that's perfect then.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Great
Then
job.
that's good.
Hey, Chief, have a good night.
What's he got, the room bugged?
They keep it on in
I
there.
don't think they're watching it, yeah. Okay.
So there's our answer.
There's your answer.
So there's no action
322.
for the board, this was more of a follow-up to your question back in.
There were a series of questions and wanted to try to.
Sometimes asking a question gets something done.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Okay. Any other questions regarding gas?
No, and actually, it's just in general, the notion of sort of a prepay and futures is sort of, that this prompted has been helpful. I mean, we're having that conversation.
This
with the
isn't a
natural
prepay,
gas.
right?
No, it's not, but that was our starting point after the questions came up. We said, we know what we buy. Why are we buying?
Very consistent. So.
Why are we buying at market for, something that's a commodity? Can we come up with a different way to deal with it? We know what we buy, and so we are having that same conversation on gas. I mean, indirect, when we buy the electric generation on the open market, we don't, we're aggregated together in a group, so, we're not fully pre-buying, but we're basically contract buying, so.
So when we did the, good.
Good, Frank.
So I just want to go back through the numbers that we have here and ask the question about taxes. I know it says here that there's no tax added. But if you have a delivery cost of 48 cents a gallon, which does seem high to me, and you have the Burke price of, for example, on 1/2/2013, and I just picked that because that's.
Right, it's the top, yep.
It's the top one. The Burke price was $3.62 and the state market price was $3.41. There's not a differential there of the 48 cents.
Mm-hmm.
It's 314, right?
The state market,
314 if you take the 48 cents.
I don't know. I'm just saying the state market price here is $3.41.
state-
But is that state market price includes taxes, or is that the actual?
that
That's what
probably.
I'm
that-
still trying to get to the point on that, is whether we should be filing for taxes.
Okay, let me be very clear. There are no taxes.
In what we pay,
In
yes,
what
but that's
we pay.
state market, is that the actual going gas pump rate?
Yeah, that's the going
So
gas
include-
pump rate.
so
So it would
includes-
include taxes. We
so
tried
includes
to do a consumer benchmark.
Okay, that's fine, then
Yeah.
I'm good, because the state market rate I was interpreting as the,
State bid rate?
yeah.
Oh, no, because the state bid is
Variable.
Burke. Yeah, the state bid is that methodology. It is that Boston number plus delivery.
Stop digging the hole, Jason.
Okay?
Jason, when you did the budget last year, what'd you base the gallons on? What was the price? Did you cushion yourself good?
No,
No, I think we did almost pump price about it at the time.
let's see. Hold on a sec.
Well, I would imagine it's probably close to pump price considering what it used to be.
Mhm.
This will change that. There could be at least $40,000 here of savings.
That was where I was going. He might pick up a few grand.
No. Nice try, though. Nice try. Yeah, there are places that is probably not one of them. Hold on a second, let me
There's
tell you.
$1,700 in savings here.
Hey,
Over
it's
the
good
next
for
2
new
months.
tires.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but if he projected it with a budget at like $4 a gallon.
Yeah, no, wasn't that high? I thought it was like 350.
I projected 16,000 gallons at $3.39 a gallon.
So
We're not gonna be doing
we'll
good.
be under it, so.
Although,
We needed this savings to flatten out for the year.
yeah, well, going back to your previous conversation, the longer police cars are out of service, the less gas they use.
Yeah, so you're saving on.
Well, I don't know about that, because they're running.
But
around
then we're running the other ones
so
more, but-
They may be not idling, but they're gonna be running around a lot more.
All right.
All right, so nothing else on gas? We're all good?
Just one last question. When do you have to start to try and rebid a 15 rate, 2015?
I assume we'll look at it at the end of December. Right now, it's state bid. There's not much. There is one vendor that's state bid, so we'll basically be calling them and saying, when can we lock in
Another price.
another price? We'll see what that price is and see, do we want to lock in a 6-month price? Do we want to lock in?
Does the state lock in their price
No.
now? Okay.
No. Or they don't, it's hard to tell because the state has sort of a master number, but then they have a DOT contact, so.
Yep.
They might.
Okay. All right, moving on. Road agent job description.
Road agent job description. We talked about this earlier in the summer, and the discussion was wanting to have something by the end of summer on a job description for the road agent. It's my first pass at this, trying to capture sort of the legal responsibility of the road agent position into a job description.
And just, I mean, Frank asked for it to be a topic for tonight, which, I mean, timing was perfect. Just for a point of clarification for me, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page that I am, so I'm not working with different assumptions. The road agent, we have a person today that assumes two jobs. One is that fact of our elected road agent, soon to be appointed. And the second half of his job is the highway foreman or highway supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
This job description only addresses what I define as 10% of his job,
Mm-hmm.
the elected portion that's being converted to appointed.
Right.
Just, I want to make sure we're all clear on that, because the job, highway foreman, is a position we've had for years, and yes, the current road agent does fill that position today. In the past, they did not. So,
I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, because if you go through this job description, it looks like, if you look at, for example, knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform the position, it's got obviously some things like use of computers, ability to respond to emergency situations, understand blueprints, all of that type of stuff, I fully agree with. Then it goes on, ability to use hand tools, ability to perform manual labor and make minor repairs on equipment, ability to perform frequent strenuous physical efforts under adverse weather conditions. I'm not sure if at
Okay.
least my concept of a road agent, I think there's some level of melding into here of.
Okay, then, yeah.
and that's why I brought it up, because
That's a fair
agree.
point. Those should probably be thrown overboard from
Correct.
this.
That's why I was
That's
bringing it
fine.
up, to make
Yep.
sure we're on the same table. That, I mean, a road agent, you know, historically has gotten involved, and it does oversee some of the projects and does visit, site visits, so like things
Yeah, I
were in
agree.
that stuff all fits. But the physical labor part of it is not something
Yep,
that's part
I
of that
will.
position.
Nope, that's fair. That's,
And I, you know, once we do this, I think it's probably fair to look at the highway supervisor or foreman position and make sure it covers all the variables, you know, but.
do you want to keep the manual labor and minor repairs?
I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, I can make this as narrow as, you wouldn't have to.
I personally believe, and it's been my belief for some period of time, that the road agent, whether elected or appointed, should be the road agent who does the following. He plans, or she plans, for the roads of the town, plans the maintenance schedules, plans the improvements that are gonna go into the roads, plans a future extension of roads, that type of thing. And to me, it's an administrative function whose job may be to direct the efforts that have to go on of the workers that work on the, and I'll call it the highway department. But not necessarily is he or she the person that goes out there and swings a pick, operates a bulldozer, that type of thing. That's just my conception of a road agent.
So with that being said, right, where we have the double duty going on now, right? Appointed as a road agent, would that second duty go away?
No, because the road agent, and this is the box we're in now, is the road agent is what this board appoints.
Right.
Then the road agent appoints the other positions and equipment as necessary to get the job
Well,
done.
and I personally believe that out of this job description, there's other job descriptions subordinate to this that need to be
Right.
fleshed out.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, we probably should update and draft those up and get those squared away too.
Right,
I think we do have some in draft formats. I mean, if you wanna, like, down in knowledge, skills, and abilities, right, the skill in the operations and maintenance of, construction equipment, tools and used for highway, I would say not skill, but maybe just say knowledge of.
Right.
Because he's overseeing, he's not necessarily the guy gonna get out there with a wrench and operate, he may in fact have that skill, but it's not a.
I think you can just drop that piece
No, I
altogether.
think knowledge of it makes sense, because if he's overseeing the department in the sense of the administrative side, he needs to understand what it goes in involved, when a piece of equipment breaks, or what its role is, or what it's supposed to be used for. But physically being able to drive one and that kind of thing. is
Let
not
me
necessary.
let me ask you a further question.
Mhm.
What's the road agent actually get paid? The road agent title.
Right now, it's a stipend for what, $800?
It's like it's 900 and
Which is,
change.
which is ridiculous, but.
I think it's another little blip that needs to be reviewed, because I don't know that you'd get somebody to come in. I think that, and I don't wanna open a can of worms here, but I think that the premise of being the road agent is the luxury to continue to do the other work that you get paid for as well. I don't think anybody in this day and age would come and sign up for this job for $800.
I don't disagree,
So
but that
I think that needs to be realigned as well.
I don't disagree, I think the problem is that our action, as I understood it, was, there's an RSA statute that defines what a road agent is, and that's what we're addressing.
Right.
Within this town, we may in fact say that we appoint, as a practice, the highway foreman is the road agent, and we look for a highway foreman that has those skills.
I'm sure that you can find what road agents get paid throughout the state, though. I mean,
It varies too, I think.
Because of the variety of different arrangements, it is all over the map.
Even the duties, if you look at this purely from an administrative perspective, and knowing the involvement with the engineers and different things, that even our current, even our past, that kind of stipend is not appropriate.
and that's why it was always melted into the two.
Hasn't always been, the one before him did not.
Yes, he did.
No, it was Gilly time. He may have gotten hours out of it, yes, but for the most part, Gilly was the highway foreman. So from a historical perspective, Gilly was the guy in charge of the department, the day-to-day stuff. It wasn't until our current road agent went in there and Gilly retired that he assumed all those roles. And by the way, again, has done a marvelous job.
Right, I'm not at all
No, I
trying to
wasn't-
put down the job that's been done, because Jack does a fantastic job
does.
with it. But when Jerry was in there, Jerry was a worker as well.
He plowed, I thought, but I don't think he did. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't aware. He had a job, he had a full-time job.
I can tell you, I know from experience, he was not collecting $800 a year to be the road agent.
Probably not. He's probably getting some hours. My point being, he had a full-time job.
Right.
In addition to being the road agent.
Understood.
Any other thoughts or corrections to or ideas around this job description?
I'm sure that Mr. Hope will have plenty to work from.
I agree.
Did you just give him direction?
I didn't give him any direction.
No, I wanted to get the ball rolling. I can continue to tweak some of these a little bit and make sure, that we were all on the same page on this notion of we have the elected official responsibility, with the current elected official, which is the road agent, and not mixing that with sort of the working in the field positions, which are subject to what, the road agent law allows the road agent to determine the other positions and equipment needed.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Any other questions, Frank? Steve?
Nope.
Kevin? When do you think we can get another draft of?
I'll throw something back in 2 weeks. I mean, this should not be rocket science at this point, just to continue to minor adjust, so, and if you think I'm missing a component, feel free to let me know.
It's open for review with comments back to you only, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be up it'll stay up on
Okay.
the main site, so.
All right, if that's done, we'll go on to tree cutting.
Tree cutting,
Just one last question I
Sure.
do have on the road agent. Have you reviewed this with Jack?
yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know. Sorry.
Nope, that's fine. So tree cutting.
Tree cutting. Question had come up earlier this year about whether we still had any town-owned land where we needed to do some additional tree cutting, harvesting, and what that might actually mean, not only for property management, but also revenue. So we, Kevin, Jack, and Joan all met with the county forester back at the end of June to look at the potential for timber harvesting on a variety of town properties. And we wanted to look for a bunch of reasons: property management, road preservation, revenue potential. And then we've been kind of shifting the information out to all of the people that might have had land in question. I attached the forester's whole report below. The summary is several lots would benefit. We're recommending some work on page roads sooner rather than later because some of the trees are close to the road or impacting the road condition. We want to look at timing and market of that. That said, there is no major source of untapped revenue here. What we flagged are a couple lots of
Good night, Chris.
where we might actually see a benefit. One of them is a Conservation Commission lot. And so most likely it's their property. That revenue would probably go back on their end. So, town-owned, the best estimate we had is about $10,000.
$10,000 to the problem we have today.
Yeah. The largest one, the one off of 3A, the access might be challenging, so the issue there may be, we need to look at the seasonality of when to get in to cut there.
Jason, what about conservation land between Pinecrest and Bear Run? I'm under the impression there is a conservation easement there. Do we?
It
or
was
not?
part of that development, the 55 and over.
Behind my house?
Mhm.
So is that something we can harvest also? Because it's ripe for harvesting.
Are we,
It's so thick. I don't know if we own it. I guess I don't understand how that conservation.
I need to look at I don't have I have to look at the maps and see. I'm seeing something that just noted as east end of Pinecrest,
Yeah, it would be.
which may be it or it may not be. Without looking at the map, I can't tell.
Okay. But just, if that's it, it says not appropriate for
It
harvesting.
says not appropriate for
I'm kind of
harvesting.
looking at it going, I can't see through it, so it's gotta be appropriate for harvesting. I'm sorry.
Well, but it may be that it has a bunch of junk.
Yeah, scrub.
It may have a bunch of scrub and nothing that's
It's got a lot of birch in
worth
there, a lot of pine.
worth harvesting yet.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I don't know how.
So, my intention is to pursue these three at whatever timing makes sense, whether that's later this year or early next year, to sort of to get that lined up and go with that. And, we'll keep you updated on it.
Okay. Any other questions on tree cutting? All right, moving on to the wage plan. Now, if I remember correctly, we moved this to this meeting for a full board. We don't have a full board again. And at this rate, I don't think we'll have a full board until September. It's the board's pleasure, but I know Brent has some feedback on it, and I don't know what we wanna do. But we keep on kicking the can down, and we.
Well, I will tell you that at some point I'm gonna need the input for budget, but, which means you're gonna have to deal with it in September, but honestly, I'm looking at this as a plus, not a included into the target you gave me at the last meeting. So, we can discuss that. And the other thing I guess I would say is, as much as I'd like to get it done sooner rather than later, you've now given me another challenge of, I can only spend so many dollars so many ways. As near as I can tell, I can only spend $1 once. So, some of the things that I had in mind to support this may go by the wayside to find another $40,000 to deal with the cruiser problem.
Well, and that may mean that we decide maybe it's not 40,000, maybe it's 10,000, maybe it's 15,000, whatever there is.
Right.
We just need to know where we take it from, I guess, is
Yeah.
the big issue.
Yeah, and you know, and the main question, as I said here, is I'm less concerned in some ways about what you do in 2014. I have a lot of flexibility in ways that I can deal with that. The concern is the decisions we make in 14 annualized across for the whole year in 15 can have a very different impact. So that's really the target I need back from you is if you make changes in 14 that are annualized, how much are you willing to accept going into 15? You know, or do you prefer a scenario that pays only one time, no annualization into 15? And deal with the rest of it later. So, you don't probably need to decide any of those right now, but I just kind of want to give you, these are kind of the things that I'm wrestling with on, that I'm going to need some feedback on.
We just keep on kicking this can further and further down the road. We have an approved plan. This board approved it last year. We have no money to fund it.
I think it should be on warrant. Put it out there for approval.
Yep.
Assign a dollar amount to it, or a percentage basis to it.
I think that's probably the only way we're gonna go forward at this point. Okay. Frank, anything?
Yeah, I've been working in the background on the numbers. Jason actually was kind enough to go through the historical record and collect the numbers as to what's changed in employee salaries for town employees from 2000 to 2014. And I also backfilled in that information as to what was the percent change in earnings from the same month, from year to year, I guess I'll call it, for production and non-supervisory workers and on private non-farm payroll seasonally adjusted. And if you look at it,
We're way behind.
well, yeah. It depends on how you slice your data. You can slice the data any way you want. But the bottom line on it is if you just take it from 2008 on, 2008 the employees received a 3% increase and the weekly earnings went up 3%, so they stayed flat. Actually 2.9%. In 2009, they got 0 increase and weekly wages dropped 1.6%. In 2010, they got a 1.5% increase, wages went up 3.1%. From 2011 to 2014, they got 0% increase. Wages went up in each of those years 2.2%, 2.0%, 2.3%, and 2.0%.
How do wages go up when we get 0% increase?
How do wages
Oh,
go
this
up?
is not us. This is
This is
a
a
national
This is
numbers.
from the
Okay.
Department
Yeah. So
of,
okay.
the Department of, what is it?
Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Bureau of Labor Statistics. Thank you.
I think that's the problem. We all know we're behind, and we all know we're not being fair to our non-union employees. But we don't have the money.
That's why I say ask for it.
No, I
It seems like
I
every
think we have
time,
no risk. We have at this point no.
it seems like every time people put things out there for raises and you get enough people to get behind it, it gets passed. I mean, if we make the same sales pitch, I don't see, unless they thought that the wage plan that was brought up was grossly inappropriate, which I don't see. You know what I'm saying? I don't see why they would deny it. The question is what you assign to it, what's the percentage, how long you put the percentage in for, things like that.
Agreed. The question, when we can obviously decide that at time we go to warrant, but, you know, what's that dollar amount gonna be? and how we present it.
I think the dollar amount is not gonna be a percentage, it's gonna be a straight dollar amount, and that the Board of Selectmen then have to respond by taking that dollar amount and adjusting individual salaries
Dispersing.
accordingly to make sure that they comply with the grid that we've set up.
No, I think.
Yeah, there is no percentage.
I agree.
Yeah.
When I said, what's the dollar amount, and how are we gonna present it, I didn't mean
Yeah.
percentage, but I probably stuttered on it, sorry.
No, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're okay with helping us figure out what that dollar amount needs to be, and so we start the budget process in September, we'll have a number we're gonna march forward with.
Yeah.
No other ideas, guys? Cause I just sit here uncomfortable with the whole
The
thing.
May, depending on how all of these other pieces and parts come together, I mean, if you looked at my notes, we had two things. We had, I was trying to deal with the structural piece, which is, the phasing into the wage plan. The other part of your wage plan you had was longevity payments. And if you go back, and part of the rationale for this is we have a number of our longest-serving employees have been plateaued in the wage plan and have not seen any increase over the past 4 years. In fact, have decreased as, if they're buying health insurance. And so that was when you built the longevity piece in for them. I may come back after I run all of my numbers again for this year and ask you to revisit the longevity piece, because that doesn't compound into next year.
Well, that longevity is yearly, correct? Annual?
Yeah,
It is, but it's a one-time hit, you're talking about bringing it forward this year and.
I'm looking to
Ideals.
see that of the two pieces you had longevity, and then you had dealing with the structural issues across a variety of positions. Anytime you deal with a structural imbalance, a change wage this year will be expanded out over the whole year, next year will be expensive. The longevity in and of itself does not compound. I mean, it's built in your plan, so as long as you follow your plan, it's still there the following year. But it's, so I don't need a decision on it tonight, because I can't guarantee that I have the money for it, but, I think that worked out to, that was like $6,300 when I figured out who was eligible for it.
That, in my honest opinion, was the only part of the wage plan I didn't necessarily agree with,
The longevity?
was an annual longevity. I have no issue giving a longevity on an anniversary. That's what I would have not agreed with, but otherwise, I mean, I think your plan looks good, I mean, well, it's our plan now. That's the only thing I would have disagreed with.
Okay. All right, next, we're good with this. Winter plowing.
Plowing, yeah. Just message road agent wanted me to pass through here that we're facing another challenge in winter contract plowing. The approach taken here is somewhat unusual because it has potential cost risks built into it. We provide sander and plow equipment and set up onto private contractor trucks. So town installs the hydraulics and drive systems to support the sander and plow. We then pay, for an operator to run the equipment. When contractor leaves, it costs the town around $4,000 to break down the truck to uninstall our equipment. The new operator is found with a large truck. We then pay close to $10,000 for a full setup to put our equipment onto another truck. Now, as long as we continue to have same contractors, it's a good deal for us. When you have contractor turnover, you start hitting these numbers sort of all at once. And when that happens, it gets run through the repair budget in the highway department. We've lost two contractor trucks this year. One's been converted to another truck with the same contractor operator, so we've done that setup. Second one, there's no truck waiting. So over the past couple years, Jack and I have been discussing moving away from that model because of these kind of inherent baked-in risk of cost. As contractors leave, if we can acquire our own vehicles equipped for plowing, then hire seasonal drivers, our costs should be less, and we don't have the uncertainty shock of turnover costs with contractors. So we're looking for a used dump style truck that can operate with a plow and sander. Realistically, this kind of vehicle will be winter use. We're hoping to take the approach we took a couple years ago with the orange former DOT truck. Instead of spending repair money on conversion only, we are hoping to spend that equivalent amount of money on an asset that can actually last longer. And just by way of some context too, winter maintenance is designed with 6 neighborhood routes and 1 floating truck circulating through all the main roads. Over the past few years, they've dropped 2 routes from what we used to have. So the redesigned route now is this 7-truck route. Road agent's also concerned that routes can't be consolidated further, and then there's no flexibility for truck or equipment failure if we aren't running the 7 routes. So what ends up happening now is that 1 floater usually runs our mains. If one of the other 6 trucks is out of service for some issue, it picks up that neighborhood route. So, this is the path the road agent's looking to go down, basically reshuffling the dollars that he'd otherwise be committed to pay out of his repair budget. And we have a decent lead on a state surplus truck.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Does it truly cost us $4,000 to break down a truck?
Yeah.
It does? Is that expensive?
Yep.
PTOs, all the hydraulic.
And the 10,000 for the full setup,
Yeah.
I actually remember bills that came in higher.
Well,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
when I look at a truck,
Yeah.
it just, I have no idea. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, you're looking 35 to 4. I think the last one we got in was like 38, and I had for the first bill that came through for a breakdown. So,
Well, there's a white Chevy out in the parking lot, we could put a sander on and.
There we go.
yeah, see, you know,
Yeah, I don't think so.
yeah, wrong size.
Just a dumb question.
Yep.
Have you considered, or the road agent considered the possibility of contracting out the parts of the routes?
Contracting, and
Isn't that
Instead
what-
of
that's
putting the
what-
contractors on call, say.
Right.
Don't we do that really officially today? That's what we do?
yeah, the contractors have a route. Each
They don't
contractor
have a
has
route.
each contractor has a route.
He just chooses to call them out. He doesn't, when the snow is all 7 don't come out, he kind of staggers a little bit, kind of.
Right, if we can stretch timing and dollars a little
If
bit.
it's a small storm, he may do it all town trucks.
Right.
With the part-time drivers he has, which is only what?
So he's contracting routes, which is different than the past where we actually, didn't contract routes. We basically contract trucks and paid by the hour.
Right, but they're assigned a specific route.
Right, we're still paying by hour. Let's not, we're mixing we may be on different wavelengths
Misunderstanding
here.
what I'm saying. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is you contract somebody, this is the route you will do, you will keep it clear of snow,
Mm-hmm.
every snowstorm that comes through.
No,
Yeah, no, they're called up.
no. And to answer the likely follow-up, it probably would not be as cheap to do it that way because, as John outlined, in some storms, we'll shuffle around and do part of it in-house because it's cheaper to do it in-house than to do contractor.
That's probably part of your reason for your turnover on the contractors as well, because they haven't been so happy that their routes are being done by the town.
Well, I mean, it may be, the town's contract has a fixed minimum in it. There's a guarantee of a certain amount of work there. I think, 2 to 3 years ago, when we didn't have a lot of winter, we actually paid out in the end of the season because we didn't meet those targets. We had no problem meeting those targets this past year. So, the disappointing thing I can observe is that the state surplus vehicles, the process has changed. It used to be that municipalities would have first crack at former DOT vehicles and the like through state surplus at White Farm. Somewhere in the policy making in Concord, it has been determined that municipalities don't have first crack anymore, and they actually either wait for the regular on-site auction and bid with everyone else, or they go through the online process. So, there is a good truck that we actually have an interest in, and I appreciate actually that Friday I spoke with the guy who runs White Farm, which is the state surplus. Said, any way we can speed this along. Waiting to October is not the best answer for me. He said, yeah, we'll put it on the online option. And he said, I'll give you a call when it's up. Called me this afternoon, and it's in the pipeline. No guarantee we'll get it, but that's our best chance at the lowest cost vehicle.
There's also government auctions from other municipalities around the country that do the same thing.
Yeah, many of them use the same state, the same vendor that the state uses.
How old of a truck is this truck?
The one we're looking at?
Yep.
I think it's like an 07 and 08,
How many miles on it?
like under 100.
It's similar to the orange one.
It's similar to the orange one. I mean, basically, we're trying to get, what we're looking at, whether it's that truck or something else, or something we run for winter plowing, and then it basically sits through the rest of the year.
But with the difference in the process on picking this truck up, it'll probably cost us at least double what we paid for the last one.
It's coming under, right? You said the
No.
price would be under
We
that?
stole the last one.
We're gonna, well, let's say steal this one.
Assuming, well, I wouldn't go wildly more than the last one
Really?
for this one.
Even though private contractors can bid on it as well?
Yeah, it's,
I mean, we've bought in those trucks. We know that they're $60,000+ trucks.
yeah, I know.
I mean, we got the last truck for what, $6,000 or $8,000?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a lot of money available to spend on this, so, I'm gonna make a good faith effort on this, and we're continuing to make a good faith effort in some other places. As, one of the other things that Jack and I have talked about is, if it has a good engine, I don't care about the dump body. We don't need a dump body. Take the dump body off, put a basic frame on, and it just needs to hold a sander. So, we may actually get a better deal because we don't care about that. We've seen a couple in passing that way. So we're trying to stretch. I hate the thought of spending $10,000 and getting nothing physical in return. So we're trying to stay as close to that as possible and get something that gives us a little bit more life and more bang for our buck.
I just know the way car auctions go. When you have a licensed car auction and a regular citizen car auction, the prices are double.
Yeah. Well,
Because people don't know what they're doing, and they're just, if they save $1,000 buying it that way, they think they're getting a great deal.
it's extremely disappointing that the state has gone this option to the detriment of municipalities, and I would suggest that a state representative may want to look into this idea further.
Do we know that?
If only we knew a state
Can't do
representative.
anything for you unless I get through the primary. If I get through the primary, then I can file legislation.
Yep.
Oh, that they restrict you until you're, really? Okay, anything else on the topic?
Nope.
You'll let us know when you hear other news?
There is also a place that's right at the Hooksett Tolls. When you're coming northbound, if you look at the right, there's a big parking lot there where they got all different types of vehicles and equipment and everything else. They do auctions. They auction off equipment.
Well, we're looking. Jack's on the hunt, so I'll pass that along.
All right, next up is water usage. Update on PB input reference meeting.
Yep.
Sorry, that's a carryover, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a carryover. I'm not sure, did that come up at the last planning board? Nope, okay. Couple things just I can hit on under my other items. See the MS4. I'll be submitting that later this week. That's our revised estimated revenue report. Goes out over my signature as the preparer, and then I'll be entering those numbers into BMSI for revenue projections. I've attached the summary. This is basically, they are what they are. This is where we're, the trends that we're seeing this year and where we're likely going to finish. So there's not a lot of policy behind this. This is sort of reality. Expectations, an increase of approximately $9,000 in total income. Notable increases, land use change tax, $17,230. Now, part of that is a little bit of, budget gaming in the sped. I don't anticipate land coming out of current use when I estimate the budget in beginning of the year, so that was budgeted at zero. Notable though, motor vehicle permit fees, are up about $46,000. So, we're seeing,
Car dealers must be happy.
we're seeing,
Buy new trucks,
we're seeing, yeah,
Talk.
that's right. We're seeing gains that now, and interestingly, if you want a benchmark of, data points on the local economy, motor vehicle permits are up, and interest and penalty and taxes are down. So people are buying more vehicles, and actually an improving economy means we're less tax penalty revenue. And if you look, that's been dropping each year over the past couple of years, so, in one way, that's a good thing. It's a good place to be losing revenue, because it means people are paying taxes on time. The other one is income from departments, about $30,000 decrease, and part of that is the maneuvering we did to change the way we handle the billing for some of the solid waste recycling and construction demolition disposal. We're running more of those, the costs of that are coming out of revenue offsets through the co-op rather than bringing checks in from one place and paying them out to another place. So I will be submitting that paperwork, which also means that, also under informational items, you will start seeing under 2015 budgets, you're going to start seeing first wave of budgets and revenues being populated there. So if you have an interest in sort of seeing where we're going so far, bear in mind, none of these have, as things first come into me, I'm dropping them in and the like. What I haven't done is sort of reconcile numbers based on how to get to your targets. But the data is there in case you're interested, or if you have any.
So the ones that are highlighted, they haven't actually been, you haven't gone through them 100% yet, or?
Well, I've got, what I've linked, I've gone through once.
Okay.
Okay, but what I haven't done is gone back with everybody's in to say, okay, this is $5,007,000. The target you gave me. I haven't gone back and scrubbed everything for that yet. I can't do that till I get everyone else in. So, don't look at it once now and think that they're done. But this at least gives you some insight as to what I have so far. And you have revenues. And I'm trying something new. So, if you go to health agencies, for instance, and this is just the first one I did, I'm trying to link in support documents as well right onto the budget sheet for you. So if you follow the link through to that and you look at the request from Red Cross for $1,500 and click where it says Red Cross, it should pop up their letter then requesting it. So as we get relevant things like that through the rest of the budget, I'll try to link them in live so you aren't chasing 1,000 different pieces of information.
Okay. Anything else in informational?
No, unless there are other questions about the items there.
Can you briefly explain to the citizens at home who are watching for their interests, I guess, the rate change for Penachuk?
Briefly explain it, huh?
Just say the percentage increases, that's all.
Oh, sure. The overall increase is 11.52%. They've provided us information.
So water's gonna go up 11, almost 12%.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
I'm gonna tap my backyard pretty soon.
There we go.
Maybe
Yeah.
everybody should boycott Penachuk.
Well, that's 11, that's a 12% increase on our hydrant bill.
Yeah, that's huge.
No, it's an increase on the hydrant bill, but it's not, no, because if you wade through all of the painful ways that they do it, they recalibrated hydrants on a different rate basis.
Oh, okay. All right, well, that's good.
And bear in mind that a big chunk of this rate is already turning up in your bills because they were granted a temporary rate increase earlier this year, so you would have seen a jump.
Wasn't it like
Not-
7%?
I think it was like
7 or 8%.
7 or 8%, I think.
Uh,
So then they make up the difference through this new rate.
And there's also step increases over the next couple of years, is there?
No, there's a catch-up. There's a,
Heinz, we call it.
yeah. They got a temporary rate, which was based, I think, on data, now see, now you're gonna test me, I think it was 2 years ago. And then it takes basically a year or so to go through the Public Utility Commission process. So they get what's called a step rate, which adjusts for all of the other changes that happened in the year intervening from when they gave the data to the new rate set. So that gets baked into all of this. This rate is also a catch-up rate, so it looks back to a point last year. So what ends up happening is you're gonna pay the temporary rate increase, which you've been paying. There's going to be the permanent rate increase, which will jump your bill up higher. There's a recapture point to catch all of the money between the approved rate and the temporary rate. So in theory, you're gonna see a rate go down slightly after that catch-up period is over. If I understand this all properly. And that's at least what we're gonna see in hydrants for and I'm pretty sure the consumer water follows the same model.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing else for you?
Nope.
All right, moving to selectmen reports. Does anybody have anything they want to share?
No budget committee meeting this month, so we go to September. And I think at that point, the budget committee's probably gonna be looking to get an understanding as to when the budgets will come to them. So I know that we had talked at our last meeting about how we're gonna do that, and I think that,
Weren't you going to reach out to Cindy and start proposing the schedule?
I can.
Thought we asked you to.
I guess sorry, I heard it the other direction around, that I was getting it from them. I can easily put together a schedule and talk to her, so that's fine.
You know what, I proposed the same schedule we proposed last year personally, and
Yeah, I'm gonna
Cindy and
try to
say, here's how-
tighten, I will
here's how
tighten
it
where I
fits in.
can, and I'm making kind of the big assumption that we will be done the majority of our review by the end of September.
So that's the goal, right, Bill?
The rec committee was asking when they needed to have their budget in.
Soon. They will be getting, I need to package theirs up and send it out to them.
They planned on working on that through the month of September.
We can make that work.
That's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
because when they asked me, I didn't have a
Yeah.
definitive date.
Yeah.
And and they said, well,
Yeah.
we were thinking about starting to work on it in September, and I said, I
Yeah,
think that'll be all right.
yeah, earlier is better than later, so,
Well, they're only meeting once a month, so when
Right.
they meet this month, I'll make sure I say something, and,
when do they meet this month?
it's probably tomorrow.
Awesome, okay, then I'll
Not
make.
tomorrow, it's next week. I gotta check.
Get something out, John, then.
Yeah, I'll get the worksheet out to John, and I'll copy you on it too.
Frank, do you have something else?
no, it's just, the discussion we had last time was just get this done once.
Right. I think that's what we're trying to do, right?
I'm all for that.
Kevin, anything to share?
No, I'm good.
There was no items moved from consent, other business. Frank asked about the website, so Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, it just struck me as that seem to be, if you look at the town website, there's a bunch of stuff up there that's pretty old material, and there's new material that's come through since that time.
Look.
Well, let me get to the town website. So if you go to, let me see here. Where am I? Let's go to document library. I wasn't prepared to go through the website, but there are things that are missing up here that we ought to take a look at.
If you have them, just send them to me. Either I'm not aware they changed, or I've forgotten they changed, but, I mean, when department heads send me stuff, I put it up. When committees send stuff, I put it up. I'm trying to stay ahead of the meeting minutes, but that's becoming a challenge.
Right, the
at times.
meeting minutes look pretty reasonable. Their last one was July 28th, that's not up yet. Budget committees behind.
Those are definitely lagging. I gotta talk to you about those. The format's not fitting. well.
Conservation Commission is way behind. We haven't even gotten 2014 minutes. Mosquito District, I don't know what they're doing for a schedule, but
Yeah, I think those are lagging too. We've actually, I mean, I look in the minutes area and it's not there, so I post everything that's in the minutes area.
Because those two, I think we talked about, they were shared with you, but they may be in a
None.
different spot, so we need to make sure that you're actually seeing them.
so there's nothing in here too as well concerning, Steve was asking about
Rec
recreation.
publishes their minutes on their own site. They have a site called litchfieldrec.com. I
Right.
believe that's where they're publishing them.
Okay, because the issue has come up with, one of the members that was doing it will no longer be able to do it, so they asked me if the town has somebody that would be able to do it, and how they would go about taking that step.
Tell John to reach out to Jason.
Yeah.
We have a pool of them, though, they have
Well,
something to do it.
Don't really have a pool, but, it's a deep pool.
Oh, we have Donna too. I
Right,
know
it
Donna
is,
knows.
it is. So, I
You can tell me tomorrow.
yeah, I could probably use
I would just,
another.
I'd reach out to John then and say if they need it, because I think
I
Sandy
was supposed to actually bring that back last month, and I forgot.
Ah,
Yeah.
That's my fault.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, whoever's doing it, if we get into our system, it makes it a whole lot easier, because I do think their minutes do need to be published also, but,
So, for example, if you look at some of this stuff on like Town Doc, I'm on the,
Yep.
I don't know, you know this better
yeah,
than I do.
reports and analysis, yeah.
Police union contract effective 2011, so we ought to update that to the new one type thing. Audit reports go up to 2010, there's not an 11 there, but I'm sure there's a marker or holder for it. Financial reports for 14 aren't up there at all. Town reports go up to 11. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's weird.
Now, let me do, you showed me.
No,
this.
no, don't do that, because I know it's not gonna be there if it's not there, because you just opened it up. No, it's not there.
Okay.
We'll get on it. Now, if anybody would like to volunteer to do it over, I'll freely give it up. All right, anything else on the website? And if there's anything else, Frank, I got all yours, I think I know what you're talking about, so I can take care of those.
It's mostly the documents that I was looking at.
Yeah,
as well.
it's one of those pages I never go to. So,
And the last thing, I did have one thing that's a separate topic though.
Sure.
And that was, we made a motion a couple of years ago about recording meetings, that all meetings would be recorded.
they are, they're all being
Are they?
recorded. Yep.
Okay. just
I
wanted-
can't think, mosquito, rec, I mean, I'm getting the recordings are, the way the recordings are working now is they come across, they get posted up on our YouTube channel also. They get cross-posted on our Facebook and Twitter page, so they're forever. So far I'm getting ZBA, Planning Board, Mosquito Control District, Recreation,
Conservation.
Conservation, ours, and
And
obviously
how,
school.
just to ask a question, thinking I already know the answer to it, how is this working?
The record, you mean the actual meetings being recorded, or?
Yeah, I mean, is it?
I have, you know what, I haven't seen any problems with them. I watch almost all of them.
It's a fantastic way to fall asleep at night.
But, I think it's going okay, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are still some members of some of the committees that haven't been televised before who are still a little reticent about
Two.
being televised.
There's two of them, but I think they're accepting it, and
Yeah.
they didn't seem, from the meetings that I've watched, that are the ones I was concerned about, they seem to be getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured would happen.
There's no one not doing it at this point that I can think of, right?
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to make.
Other than maybe the cable committee, but they meet in a place where they don't have cameras. Lucky them. So that's it.
The irony.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else for any other actions or any other discussions we need to have tonight? Hearing nothing else, I will take a,
Make a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The meeting will conclude. Our next meeting will be August 28th, 6 o'clock here at Town Hall. But have a great night and a great week.